G'day, hi and welcome. All right. Okay. Okay, guys. Okay. Okay. Exhibit A. It's 14 degrees here, 34% humidity. Not too bad. I got one heater on 10. And it's April 1st. No joke. Okay. So, first off, I made a life decision. Okay. And my life decision is basically I think I'm a progressive. Yeah. I'm going to become a progressive. This is my point of privilege card. My pronouns are they, them, what the fuck. Okay? And if you don't agree with that, how dare you? Steal your pronouns. All right. Okay. If you have not seen the NDP, I know we're going to talk about World War III, but guys, there's been a lot of media activity. And there's a part of me that says, okay, are we in danger? Or are we about to be put out of our misery? Because at this point, I don't know. You know what I mean? If you have not seen the NDP convention, oh my God, mental illness on display at a level that embarrasses the shit out of my country. Hang on a second. I gotta grab something. Oh, like, you see it and you're just like, send the asteroid, send it now. Like, wow. The girl with the ears. Like, I don't normally make fun of people, physical looks or something. But, like, she just looks so bizarre. Big double ears. And, like, just like, like you couldn't pick a better character to be this unhinged. You know what I mean? The point of, and it was just like, I watched it and it's like, you almost want to hit yourself in the head with a hammer, just to, like because you're in stunned shock anyway. With it was like, what the heck? When you have the CBC, Vash, the blonde girl, she's kind of a hit and miss. Um, she's one of those people that she's not stupid, but she's not like Pierce Morgan disingenuous, but like it's kind of like to work at the CBC, you got to be a progressive, right? But even she's like fucking tearing like a new hole in this guy who the new leader of like the NDP, which I'm like good. That's exactly what like the same people even in the middle are not going to fucking vote for that. Like Yasmin Singh was an anti-white, uh, Indian guy, right? Not native Indian, but dot, not spear. Be offensive. Might as well be offensive at this point. Uh, and like he ran the party into the ground. Like Tom Mulcair had no charisma, no charm, whatever. Jack Layton was like the ultimate nice guy politician. Yeah, he was corrupt. There's no doubt about that. But the guy could sell snake oil to a snake oil salesman. Like the guy could out charm Obama. Everybody that met Jack Layton was like, oh, he's the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He's so compassionate. He looks you in the eye when he talks to you. He's like you're there. He really appreciates everybody. But really, he was just part of the housing. We need all like public housing, yeah, because I'm invested in it, right? Tom Mulcair, his scam was cap and trade, right? But Tom Mulcair, he was leader of the NDP, and then because he did both provincial. He was our premier for like 4 years and pretty much bankrupt Quebec. Like, it's not like we weren't already fucked as it was. Uh, and then he came along. Then after that, people were like, okay, now we'll deal with the corrupt liberals instead. Yeah. Like they just skim a little off the top. The NDP, they just fucking tank your economy. These are like the ultra like cut off all energy, cut off all like don't step on a blade. Like that's bad enough. Like the Green Party is that, but this is like these like point of privilege cards and people arguing over like it was just like bureaucracy mixed with mental illness and bitching about narcissistic point of privilege cards and how this point of privilege card is not as valuable as that. Like it's just like oppression Olympics, right? And like listen to these people talk, guys. because they have to acknowledge every little fucking thing. Like, if you put a person like me in there as a troll, and there's one guy, the Chinese guy, I think he was a fucking troll. I could just tell he was a troll. Like, he was fucking trolling. Like, it was good. He was convincing. He was really, but I'm like, nah, he's a fucking troll. I know he is. I just know he is. Like, man, they're good. But if he wasn't a troll, holy shit, this is what we got to deal with. And these people have positions of power. Oh my dear, send the asteroid. Just send it. Oh my god! Like, if you haven't seen it, like, the worst is everybody around the world looks at us and they think we're all like that. No, that's like that. Like, you'll meet maybe about 5 of these people in your entire lifetime. You know what I mean? The odd person, unfortunately. Like, I know maybe like radical leftists that we mock, kind of unhinged woke people. I maybe know about 5. Like, if you don't run in those circles, they all run together, right? Like, they run as a pack, birds of a feather, right? So you really don't see. The problem is that if you go into a government building, these are the people that get the positions of power because people are afraid not to, if they don't promote them, and Asmongold, who, love him, hate him, whatever, he just does this thing, right? I find he's a bit of a fence sitter, whatever, for some things, but it's like, okay, well, he's more of a force for good than not, exposing it. But he made a good point where he said, what did he say? He said, the people, the moderates, like the moderate left wing people that support this are just as bad. You know what I mean? Like, I stand with LGBTQ, XYZ, and all that. And it's true because you're enabling these people, right? And like, they need help. They need help. Like, yeah, we mock it and everything like that. It's a fucking freak show, whatever. But at the end of the day, these are people that are mentally ill. They're hurting. You don't have to be a doctor to figure this out. Doctors used to be able to figure this out. Now they can't because it's politically incorrect. They could lose their job, right? But these are the type of, like, I think they fired like 3 NDP people over for misgendering people, right? Like, these are the people that are bringing in the hate speech laws, right? Because you have these so-called moderates that are like, well, no, I'm gonna, protect these. We always have to protect these minority groups, right? And like, to a degree, it makes sense. Like, okay, if you've got, like, okay, you live in, like, say, I don't know, Bolivia or some place like that, and you've got this rare, you know, uh, tribal bush people that there's only like 150 of them left, and they're in the land that time forgot, and don't mess with them. We'll keep away from them so that they don't get tainted by winter. Okay, I can understand that. You know what I mean? I can totally understand that. Or like the people in those tribes in Madagascar, plus they're cannibals, so you don't want to go near them anyway. But yeah, okay, yeah, like, I'm on board with that. Save the pandas. I get it. Okay, but this is just another level that, oh my god, and these are the people. It's World War III. We're storming Iran. We're going to downtown Tehran. You got, like, here's this, like, top V, guy's got his 50 cal on the top. Get some. Okay, and then it's like, this big tank comes along, put a privileged car, hang out the turret, top of the turret. All right, you're gonna get a they them shell up the buttocks. It's gonna happen, I know it. Oh wow. What a god. Like, it's like, you could always sit back and laugh at the madness of it all. Like, how do we go from, like, retard Trump to that? Like, it's just a complete fucking batshit crazy ends of the spectrum, right? Zionist evangelicals and crazy radical Jewish Zionist death cult on this side, and fucking narcissistic they thems on the other side. Like, how did we get here? Like, how did we? Like, again, the only thing I sum it up to is it's a genetic thing. It has to be what I call the suicide gene. I believe there's a certain amount of the population that Mother Nature's just intended not to survive. The problem is modernity allows just about anybody, like somebody born with spina bifida that used to die, within a couple of years just because it was so impossible to live, now can live to like 100 years old. I'm not saying I don't want those people alive. What I'm saying is that the technology has come that far that there's no struggle anymore. to the point where people are walking around with point can't even say it. Point of privilege cards. What the fuck is that? I'm losing it. Oh, jeez. Oh my god. The Gods Must Be Crazy meets Smoot Over Parador meets Catch 22. Andy Jackson, one of my subscribers, said he really loved the book Catch 22. At least now you understand what I'm talking about, right? I've always seen the movie. I never read the book. But if I ever see the book, yeah, I'm grabbing it for sure. I'd probably drop everything and just start reading it just because, like, I gotta know again, like, holy shit. Wow. Like, I saw, like, the avatars a couple of nights ago for the videos. And I was just like, how bad is it? Like, how bad is it? I didn't know what it was for. I caught, like, a little clip. Like, they're all crying that we did this, we accomplished. Like, it was, like, the most mediocre thing that they accomplished, right? Some sort of executive, bureaucratic thing that they... It's like, it's a fucking... You got government funding and they told you to do it. It's like, it's not a big feat. But that's how these poor people are. Like, just getting out of bed in the morning must be, like, fucking impossible for these people. Like, can you imagine, like, waking up in the morning being a progressive, woke person? Like, the mental hemorrhage that is. Like, I feel bad for people. I do have empathy. Yes, I'm mocking them. I know, bad, shame on me, whatever, you ableist, whatever buzzword you want. Again, beware. But these people, that's all they can speak is buzzwords. Just listen to them. It's like Trudeau. Like, they just speak buzzwords. They don't have an original thought in their head. That's what, like, extreme, as Saint Yuri Bezmenov would say, it is extreme brainwashing. They're so brainwashed. yeah, like it's irreversible at that point. Yeah, it's true. It's like North Korean level brainwashing, but with the North Koreans, they just brainwash them a different way. You know what I mean? Like it's. Yeah, and we keep supporting it. And again, it's one of those things, like, these people are going to die anyway. I'm not, oh my God, don't try to help them. But you have to understand, we've lost the cause there. When they're that far gone, like, their days are numbered. They're going to take their own lives. Like, they're just one pronoun misgendering away from jumping off a building. That's how bad these people are. And we keep enabling it, and worse off, these people, most of them weren't mentally ill until they became progressives. And they weren't progressives until they went to a schooling system that brainwashed them into that hyper radicalness. You can make people believe anything, I guess. Wow. Just wow. Yeah. Karen stamp approved. There you go. Yeah, send the asteroid. Send it. Okay. So from that batshit craziness, the other two main topics I wanted to talk about today, because it seems like, and I said this, you heard me say this, that Donald Trump is looking for a way out of this war, in a sense, but on the other sense, he's completely committed because he's a Zionist evangelical doomer, right? He doesn't know what to do, right? Because he's got to stroke his ego, and I got this big Maduro raid 2.0 going on. And he's throwing out things because the guy can't keep the guys is as crazy as like Trump is just as crazy as this they them with the big ears. You know what I mean? You'll know what I mean as soon as you see her, right? And the thing is that it's like you like he'll say things like we're going to do a raid. To go and steal the yellow cake from Iran. Okay, like you're gonna come in with a bunch of like Chinooks and Ospreys and just like go fucking grab like this radioactive material and depleted and refined plutonium and uranium and whatever else they want to grab. They're just gonna grab it, throw it in a bag, and get out of there. You'd be dead before you hit the shoreline from fucking radiation sickness. It's the psychopaths, they're not stupid. The thing about psychopaths is they're actually quite clever when they can do their scheme. But in the moment, because they have to lie and be so grandiose so fast, that they just blurt out anything, right? Because they're trying to impress you. And everybody knows this guy. Like you go to a party and no matter what you do, he's like the one up guy, right? You bought, hey, guys, look, I bought a thing of Pepsi today. He's like, oh, yeah, well, I went and bought a case. I fixed my bike. Yeah, I went and bought a new bike. You know what I mean? Like he has to tell you right away that he's one up to you, right? Everybody knows that guy. Have you ever seen the movie Zombieland with Woody Harrelson? And he says something to the other kid, and the guy goes, "Oh, you're not one of those one up guys." And he goes, "No, no, no. I know a guy way better, way worse than me at that." But it was just the way, like the joke was so smooth, the way Woody Harrelson did it there, and I laughed so hard. I was in the theater and I laughed, and like nobody else laughed. I'm like, but that was like the fucking funniest, wittiest comeback ever. No, no, I know somebody way worse than me, but it was just the way he did it, right? But there's like, yeah, it's like back in the '90s. Like again, I worked in an office building, so I saw all the Mr. Trendies with the Tommy Hilfiger trend when that came along. That was something else. Every guy, like I refuse to wear Tommy Hilfiger stuff. It's not that the stuff didn't look good or Oakley sunglasses. I had my blue blockers for like $5.99 or something like that, and my, I remember, except for one girl, Nancy. She was, if you saw her, she was drop dead gorgeous. Uh, back in those days, she had her Oakleys or whatever, and I had my blue blockers. She always made fun of my blue blockers because it's like they took up like they made me look like Randy Macho Man. You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, but anyway, she looked really good in them. Like so, like her. But I'm like, I said for you it doesn't matter. She goes, well, what do you mean? She goes, I bought these really nice sunglasses. I said, nobody's noticing your sunglasses. She goes, what do you mean? So I reached, I had like this really cheap pair of girls' sunglasses. It was my ex girlfriend. Here, take off your Oakleys, put these on. Okay, so she puts them on. I said, just keep them on until we walk into the house. So we walk in the house, okay. Like the last time we walked into my buddy's house, okay, everybody was there. And, oh, Nancy, we love your sunglasses. Oh, they look so good on you, blah, blah, blah. $3.99, guys. $3.99 sunglasses. She walks in. Oh, all the other girls. Oh, I love your sunglasses. They're so nice. She looks back and be like, fuck. Yeah, $3.99, $169.99. Yeah. Make fun of my blue blockers. You make fun of my blue blockers, you get some. But it made my point. You know what I mean? The trendy stuff, like go do whatever. But that's the office thing. But the thing is the office people have turned into these either crazy progressives or Cash Patel types, Pam Bondi types, where it's like, I got to keep my job, so I got to go along with the Epstein stuff. I got to go along with fucking going to war with everybody. You know what I mean? Like, how did we get to a point where people are so spineless? Sure, you lose your job, whatever. Like, there's a few guys, like, I can't think of the guy's name. Kent, something Kent. Yeah, I've caught a bit of what he said. Okay, the thing is I didn't want that guy to quit. I'll tell you why. Like guys like that, you don't quit. Get fired. Say the quiet part out loud and just get fired. You know what I mean? That and I understand there might be reasons why they'd quit because they might get a pension or something like that. Where if they get fired, they might lose a pension or something. So I can understand that. But if you're one of those people that can actually make a difference, you're going to make money somewhere else anyway. I mean, look at what do you call him, Tucker Carlson. Yeah, he got fired. Didn't matter. He was a multi-millionaire when he got fired anyway. He had the fuck you money, and now he's probably making more money than what he did when he was working at Fox or where CNN or wherever the fuck he was working. Not Fox. Where was he working? It was Fox. Yeah, it was Fox. Yeah, right. And yeah, there's that. So this is where we're at now. That said, bureaucratic, robotic grunts, right? The two main topics I wanted to talk about today, okay, is basically the desalination plants and the drone pilots, which is a major, major problem for the United States right now. And that really shows itself under the Obama years, but we'll get in that. So Trump says all this stuff, we're negotiating. The Iranians are like, we're not really, there's nobody we're negotiating. Like, when they're doing talks in Turkey and stuff like that, but there's no serious negotiations going on whatsoever. Right? So, like I say, Trump could be talking to the fucking janitor, and to him, that's making a deal. You remember like a couple of months ago when he was talking to some uh, guy in the like guy in the UN that was like he was like basically a delegate to the for Greenland or for Denmark and the Netherlands or something like that, and he was like talking with the Trump administration about acquiring Greenland. And it's like, yeah, but this guy has nothing to do with it. Like, he's not an elected official. He's just some bureaucrat somewhere in the UN, right? And Trump's like, yeah, we're getting great talks going because you're just talking to some guy like that has no power to do anything at all. And the guy's like, yeah, well, it'd be a great idea if Greenland became a part of whatever. Oh yeah, and he's like all on board with the Trump stuff, right? But it doesn't matter. The guy doesn't have any power, But that's the way Trump. Like I say, Trump could be talking to the janitor. And it's like, oh, you want to run the country? Yeah, we'd love to have you run the country. You're the perfect guy for the job. Like, yeah, me. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm in. But the guy, like, you know what I mean? Like it's like, yeah. So it's just like, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. But yeah, like for Trump, like I say, he's got to be the center of attention, and now he's being, called like the Lego, the Iranian Lego things. They are quite brilliant, I gotta say. But it does look like they're signaling they're going to take out Trump because they sent them that one where there's like the Lego coffin. It says loser on the coffin. Yeah. So again, I'm sticking with what I said. Trump's days are numbers. I still say it's most likely going to be a MAGA veteran sniper that kills him. I just have the hunch. Why? Because it's the MO, right? It's the MO. The betrayal is one, but I mean, the Israelis could kill him too if he doesn't, if he doesn't fulfill their prophecy, right? They're going to kill him. The CIA might kill him just because it's like, well, pick a reason. He destroyed the world economy. Now my portfolio is certain. Again, when you take money away from billionaire class, you know what I mean. They tend to send people after you. So we'll see. Like it's hard to say, but his days are numbered. There's no doubt about that. Everybody in the world, like I mean, he's betrayed Christianity. He's betrayed the MAGA base. He's betrayed every American. He's betrayed every ally. You know what I mean? It's just fucking crazy. Like one good thing about this NDP thing is like, okay, when Pierre Poilievre, who I voted for, I didn't vote for Mark Carney. Now Mark Carney, again, I take him, the good with the bad. He's the guy that we have to deal with. So, I don't really care what the opposition is doing as much because they're not in power, right? Like technically, you know what I mean? Unless they can get something done. And there's tons that you can complain about Mark Carney on, right? But Mark Carney in comparison to Trump, there's no doubt I'd vote for Mark Carney over Trump. Yeah, I said it. Oh, how dare you? That's an unsubscriber. Hear me out. If Trump was doing what Mark Carney has been doing for the last past year, the Americans would not only have the best economy in the world, not just the biggest economy, but the best economy. You guys would be on your way to a recovery level. Like just getting 12 new trade deals for the United States would be really good. You know what I mean? Really good. Trump has not made a trade deal, I don't think, at all in a year. The last deals he did was with Toyota or something like that, and that was stuff that was under Biden. Like it was already like it was like he was just the guy that signed the final deal, kind of like the Trans-Pacific Partnership that Stephen Harper was trying to bring in, but it ended up it was Trudeau that brought it in. It didn't matter which guy you voted for. I didn't want trust me, we do not want the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That's where all your temporary foreign workers are coming from. That's why it's a big part of it. NAFTA was bad, but the Trans-Pacific Partnership is one of the worst things that's ever happened to the West. It just sold us completely out, right? To globalism. But it doesn't matter because globalism is going to die anyway. One way, it's like it doesn't matter if you can get a good deal on cheap third world labor when the ship is the fuel for the ship is like the shipping is just like 10 times, 20 times what it would normally cost. Unbelievable, unfucking believable. But anyway, no, like I say, like Trump is trying to get the rally around the flag and stuff like that, and he's just digging himself in, doubling down. One of these never apologize type people. Well, if you're wrong, you apologize. It's just no. You have to be consistent. In fact, most people would, when they, it's because it's so rare. Whenever you get a politician that actually truly apologizes, not the fake, disingenuous apologetics like Trudeau and stuff like that, where it's oppression Olympics. No, that's not what I'm talking about. So, look, I did a policy. The policy didn't work. Look, guys, we've got to go back to the drawing board. You know what I mean? Like, we were wrong. We're always in the right. Double down, double down. Like, that's what's fucking up our. That's what fucks everything up. No, it's like, okay, we're going to try something. Hey, look, we failed. We're going to try something else. People are understandable. You know what I mean? In fact, they'd be super understanding. It's like, okay, well, no, you tried, you fucked up. You fucked up. You trusted me. I remember watching Tommy Lee there. Say what you want about Tommy Lee, whatever, but like it's like Tommy. He's driving his Harley. He's like, Tommy, you're supposed to get to the interview at this time. You fucked up. You trusted me. He takes off. That's pretty much every politician. You fucked up. You trusted me. But what I'm getting at is that like the situation we're in is an insolvent situation in so many ways, economically, supply chain wise, and of course the fact that we murdered so many people over there. And when I say we, I mean the West. Like, trust me, Iran is not separating the people that are not jumping on. Like Trump out there going on about how you got to go get your oil now. Like, we're not going to get it for you. Like, it's your problem now. Well, the thing is that the West isn't going to send warships. This whole, send your warships because you need to help us because we started a war that we can't fucking deal with. And then it's like, okay, well, nobody's jumping in. NATO betrayed us, blah, blah, blah. No, they didn't. It's like it was a war of choice. That doesn't cover Article 4 or 5. You know what I mean? Like, even if Iran hits you on the U.S. soil right now, it's still not going to be covered under Article 5 because you started the war with them. Had they hit you first, then yeah. And, this idea that... and you know why? Because, again, remember when Trump said, yeah, all these NATO forces, the fact that he acknowledged that we even went to help, how everybody jumped in after 9/11 to help the Americans, fight the war on terror, right? And all those soldiers that died in Canada, the UK, like, we lost like 160 some odd soldiers, thousands wounded. The UK, lost like 400. The Netherlands, I think they lost the most per capita. I forget what it was, but it was a large number. France lost. Everybody lost troops there. And Trump, like sitting there saying, "Oh, these guys stayed way, way, way back." Well, tell that to the fucking guys, the Canadian guys crawling through fucking caves with pistols and that found the largest weapons cache in human history and blew it up. Right? Tell that to them. Tell that to all the guys that were, sitting back in labs and shit like that getting blown up. All those veterans that lost arms and legs and, many lost their lives. And again, Trump, insults them. And then calling everybody weak and, oh, well, the Canadian Navy's pathetic. I'm not saying our militaries don't have issues. But our military, like, if you look at what Carney's done, okay, 2% of GDP, we've hit it in a year. That's what happens when there's political will. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. So, like, everything that's happening to us is happening on purpose because when the political will's there, it's funny what they can get done. Right? And Carney, Carney wants to turn Canada into a middle superpower. But we're not going to stay a middle power. We're going to be, like, right now, we're almost in the lead of the G7 within a year. 10 years of just like being at the bottom of the list. And with all the problems that Trudeau has made for us, that is still, we got so far to go to recover. And the United States is not sitting where Canada is. Yes, Canada's over budget. There's no doubt about that. But like the United States is like $2 trillion over budget. right? And growing. Like the United States is now at the point where it can't pay service its debt. It's pretty much gone insolvent. That's what insolvency is, right? You can't pay the debt. It's not just paying the interest on the debt. You just cannot pay the actual debt payment. Where us, everybody, and again, I was kind of surprised when conservatives bitched about this. They said, okay, $245 billion in new spending. Okay, but that 200 billion of it is going just to service the debt. Well, you should be happy about that, because if we're making full payments, that means our deficit is going to come down. Which means if we balance the budget, we pay off the debt, we become the most powerful country in the world, currency-wise, overnight. Which means, and here's what I mean: like if we had a balanced budget right now, okay, that's good. But balanced budget and no debt, here's what it does for you. Okay, Canadian dollar is like, okay, it's like 10 American dollars to the one Canadian dollar, which could happen overnight. Okay, well, we can't have that because it'll destroy trade. We'll be able to buy anything from the States, but the States won't be able to buy anything from us, so it'll hurt our industries. Here's what we do is we print money for, okay, we want rocket ships. Oh, did you hear about the new Canadian space program? Yeah, we got that going on now. Yeah, it's humble beginnings. Everybody mocks everything at the humble beginnings. And this is what I'm learning about Carney is like, don't dismiss this guy. Like this guy crosses his T's and he dots his I's. I think Carney's the best we could get in the, Pierre Poilievre, would he do as good as Carney? I don't know. Because you have to understand, Carney stole half of Pierre's platform. So would we see a difference? We'd probably be seeing like an equivalent. I don't think it really mattered which guy we got. And I know the guys on the right don't want to hear that. But guys, I'm looking at it objectively. Like again, you don't have to tell me all the bad, stupid stuff with Carney. The gun buyback is absolutely done. Stupid. Today, like the RCMP was sending us out all kinds of memos there in the past month. The deadline is, for the buyback is now done. Now it's up to October, but hopefully there's a constitutional challenge that will because no police force in Canada wants to enforce this thing, and they want to send, like again, it's everybody knows it's a farce, right? So if Carney backs off on that, and we get, I doubt he will, but there's a possibility he might, because he's doing some things that just like goes against the left from a moderate point of view, not from he's our guy. I'm not saying that at all. Don't ever say, I'm not giving the man a reigning endorsement. I'm just telling you what he's doing, right? And what he's doing is he's setting Canada up very well for the next guy. So balance the budget. Our dollar starts to get too much strength. Well, all we have to do is print money to keep the currency at a base level, and print money for make work projects. Like, you want that high-speed rail from Montreal to Toronto? Let's do it. It's $200 billion. Yeah, okay, fine. But our dollar stays at parity with the Americans. So we just stay in enough debt, but our debt is for something that benefits the country. Oh, you want more doctors and nurses and, family doctors? Okay. And then just stay at a manageable level. Oh, okay, you want the bypass for line 5 and line 9? So that, and harden our grid so that we can never have to, worry about the Americans, fucking with our power and our oil. Let's do that. You know what I mean? That's what a balanced budget and paid off deficit would do. Like you would just only add, print enough money to get your projects done, and that's it. There would be no accumulate. Like, we wouldn't be paying for shit from World War One. You know what I mean? Anyway, I digress. But yeah, no. What seems to have happened the past 3 nights is something that I've said we would probably see, and that is that Trump is this. If he's tacoing, it's just like, okay, and he does that. He's in it, and then he gets fed up with it, and he just leaves it, right? So you got all these troops there. What are they going to do? I don't know. Like maybe what they're going to do is evacuate people, and then because it didn't seem like there was a lot of airstrikes last night. Maybe there was. Maybe the censorship is just getting better or whatever, but it doesn't seem to, because I think what's happened is, especially after they hit the AWAC, like the big one, the E3, when they hit that, it seemed like, okay, whatever operations they had planned for that night, they couldn't do, because You needed that aircraft. And there's like 6 of them in the area, and 3 possibly damaged, and 1 completely destroyed. Like the Iranians didn't just hit the airplane, they hit the most valuable part of that airplane. That tells you something. That tells you that the Iranians are definitely a peer-to-peer adversary. Like they're not slightly behind the United States; they are equal to the United States in firepower. It's just they're using a different method of firepower. That's all. Rockets and drones instead of cruise missiles and ATACMS and shit like that. Yeah. So the fact that when you look at that aircraft footage, okay, and you see right where it hit, it's right where the radar dome was, right? So that airplane is like maybe there's some part, they'll get the engines off of it or whatever, be a parts plane, but there's only like something like 16 of these things worldwide. That's it, and they may have lost 3, and there's like 6 of them in the area. So that's a great depletion of capability, right? Now, drones, we know the counter stopped at somewhere 11 or 12 drones, what do you call it, Predator drones, right? Now, the Predator drone is the cheap one. The Reaper drone is the Obama era, let's kill everybody once, right? Now, the drone pilots are a problem because most of these airstrikes you're seeing are guided by the drones, right? These smaller Predator drones. They can fire, up to 8 help fire missiles or whatever, JDAMs, smaller JDAMs or whatever. GBUs, whatever they have, right? But the GBUs, for example, are like Maverick missiles. You have to pretty much be line of sight, right? So you can't really use those things anymore because you have to get your aircraft directly over Iranian territory. The problem with the Iranians is that they've got manpad launchers, but they also have like these small little trucks that fire up to about 4 manpads at a time. These things are all over the place. They could have thousands of these things. We don't know what they have, right? So they're a short-range air defense, but by the time you're within the range, you're pretty much within unmissable range. And that's most likely what was used to hit the F-35, which used a line-of-sight thermal imager and shot out the heat signature of the aircraft. And the fact that it went to the front part of the aircraft near the intake tells you that this thing doesn't need a lot of heat to be able to detect something, right? So the pilot was injured, and the only question was, when he landed, did he land with wheels up or down, right? So technically, that F-35 is considered shot down. The pilot took shrapnel, so the airplane was hit. There was a Super Hornet that was hit, and there's one that was just slightly missed, but there's one you can clearly, it knocked something off the aircraft, so damaged anyway. So I'm sure once that thing, if it made it back to base, it's going to be down for like 3 weeks, getting fucking repaired, right? So that's just the stuff that gets caught on video. So for everything that we're seeing, and again, there's like footage of like the IDF flying around their F-16s and whoa, there goes a fucking missile. You know what I mean? So they're being shot at. That airspace is being very well contested, right? So you're just not hearing about the shoot downs. So you'd say, well, if they were shooting down so many aircraft, why isn't there footage from the Iranians? Because they would be bolstering this like crazy. And that's true, but there's also another angle of it. Some of the airstrikes, when you lose an aircraft, one of the things you do is you bomb that aircraft on the ground so it doesn't fall into enemy hands. And the technology, right? So this is a normal practice. Now we can't confirm how many aircraft have been shot down. I think it's pretty close to what we know. Maybe there might be a couple extra, but most of the aircraft are getting destroyed on the runways, like I said they would. But I also said when it gets to the point where the war is not, feasible to fight without massive, depletion of the United States capabilities, such as taking out the AWACS. You take out the AWACS, okay, the kill chain is satellites, AWACS, drones, possibly reconnaissance guys on, liaisons on the ground sitting there. Okay, here's your target. Here's the coordinates to your target. Here's how you hit it. Triangulate it in. Make sure you get an accurate hit. Right? There's probably ranger teams on the ground doing that. What they're exactly called. It's different in every country, but you can call them forward observers. You can call them liaisons. You can call them you know you know strike package insurance. Whatever you want to fucking call them, it doesn't matter. They're guys on the ground. They got binoculars, range finders, ways to send information back. So there is probably boots on the ground in that sense, but it's not going to be set 10,000 guys. It's going to be a handful of guys, and I'm sure the Iranians at some point hone in on these guys one way or the other. We're not seeing a lot of aircraft in the air, but from the Iranian side, but maybe there is, just because we're not seeing it. Like, I mean, if these guys are flying MiG-29s and F-4 Phantoms, okay, they're at great disadvantage to F-15s, Super Hornets, F-18s, and F-35s, and F-22s, and F-15s, right? Sure. But if they're flying over where they've got, basically all this air coverage, what they could be doing, because I know the Iranians were, I don't know if they built them yet or not, getting Su-30s. Now, an Su-30 is a very capable airplane. It's more capable than the F-15. It's a better airplane. It's more maneuverable, it's faster, longer ranged. Carries a heavier weapons load, just as powerful or more powerful radar. It does everything. You know what I mean? It's one of the backbones of the Russian Air Force is the Su-30. The J-30s that the Chinese have are just their versions of it. India has versions of it. The Iranians were going to build them, but they were going to put their own avionics in it because the Russians use some, Leonardo technology stuff, which is Israeli, right? So they didn't want any backdoors for Israel. So I don't know if these things ever got built in time. And again, there's rumors that they may have gotten Su-35s. Now, if it gets to a point where all the AWACS are down, all the forward radars are down, okay, which pretty much seems to be the case, you lose all your tankers. The aircraft carriers have to stay way the fuck back. Without the tankers, never mind the aircraft carriers. The tankers are top priority, if you ask me, because the F-18s, the F-16s, even with drop tanks, they can't do a whole mission on drop tanks. Even if you put 3 drop tanks on an F-18, you're not going to fly all the way there with a comparable payload. You're going to have 4 weapons on the entire aircraft, and the aircraft's not going to be able to maneuver because of you got 20,000 pounds of fuel on. You know what I mean? So you either have to move the aircraft carriers in closer, which gets them killed, or and that's not to say that you still need the AWACS to cover the targets. You still needed those ground radars to be able to get your interceptor missiles, and not only just the interceptor missiles, but just again, those ground radars also detect. Hey guys, there's a bunch of Su-24s coming over the coming over the treetops to bomb us. You know what I mean? Once we see Iranian bombers, fighter bombers like the Su-24s coming in, if they have some Su-25s, whatever, or maybe they're going to use their F-5s and F-4 Phantoms, whatever, to strafe and bomb runways throughout the Middle East. I don't think they'll do that until they got air superiority, to the point where it's okay, well, we can now challenge these aircraft in the area because but they might not need to do that. Because it might just be a waste of fuel when you can use. Why send a fighter that requires you got a pilot in the air for hours, and then all that maintenance, when you can just put all that into loading up the rocket, firing at once. You never have to you never have to worry about that rocket again. You know what I mean? Once it's gone, it's a one-way path. Much better than aircraft maintenance and all that stuff. So it's basically the Air Force is obsolete, is what I'm telling you, right? But the drones are still the thing, right? And there's a problem because the Predator and Reaper drones, one of the biggest problems with them is that they're so hackable. Okay? So the thing is that you're relying on satellite, you're relying on AWAC to get your aircraft close enough to lob a missile within its range from a standoff distance, right? So that you're not getting challenged by the air defense systems. Problem is as you move inward into the country, because they don't just have rocket like one or two little cave, like they could have thousands of these caves, like they've got stuff all over the place, right? So, like at the beginning of the war, everybody's like, "Oh well, Iran's only goal is just to survive the war." They're not going to survive the war; they're going to win it. Like they're actually, oh, but they lost their navy. The navy's obsolete. The air force is obsolete. They don't need that to fight this war. And I've been saying that for decades. Like, no, the rocket strategies, low tech works no matter what. I mean, they're high enough tech rockets. Don't get me wrong. It's just what are the range of these rockets, right? And what are the payloads that are going? That's the two issues. So if the Iranians don't have nukes, they probably have chemical warfare. If and biological warfare warheads, they probably have that. Why? They probably would have gotten them from the Syrians. I mean, the Syrians probably sold the American like the Iranians were saying the other night that the ambassador was saying, well, like Trump was threatening to basically destroy everything, your fuel, your energy sector, your like they're already attacking like the steel refineries and stuff like that, and taking out your food and your water basically. And the Iranians were like, well, you can do that, but we got and they might nuke you. And they're like, yeah, well, we got some surprises for you too. So I'm like, well, what are the surprises? Well, again, the idea that the Syrians wouldn't give or sell or whatever chemical weapons to the Iranians. Again, maybe the Ayatollah forbid it, because he was, like, okay, no, nukes are it's haram, can't do it. You can have war, you can have battle, but you can't do that, right? Okay, fine. But maybe they say, okay, you can have it, but you can't use it. you know, uh, but again, that said, you don't necessarily need to have the item as long as you have the materials to build the item, right? And I think every country can build chemical warfare. Like it's not hard to do that stuff. Like a third year chemist, in college could probably build like planet killers. You know what I mean? Like like a third year biologist could probably come up with a virus. Like biological warfare weapon that wipe out half the planet. Like it's not that complicated to make this stuff. The uranium, even at that, like dirty bombs. Well, we know they can make dirty bombs. That's and that's even worse. Like neutron bombs, just low yield, burn off the the plutonium. You know what I mean? Neutron bomb is probably the worst thing. It's basically a reactor meltdown. Is what it is. It just burns so dirty. It just irradiates everything with the most amount of radiation, poison. It's horrible. And like right now, like for example, the Israeli chemical plants that are getting hit by the Iranians, like they're like people are getting sick off of all that fumes, right? And oh my God, the poor Israelis. Well, what do you think's happening to the fucking poor Iranians? They got all these fucking things on fire too. There's a lot of shit that burns in that. You know what I mean? Like there's chemicals, there's metals, there's, you know what I mean? Like like the crimes against humanity that wars are. You know what I mean? Look, Gulf War was the depleted uranium. Again, you had soldiers. Like when they finally started using depleted, like guys in like Abrams tanks were like, "Hey, I shot that tank 3 days ago and it's still on fire." Like, what makes like a composite steel tank burn for 3 days? You know what I mean? Like, and you're breathing that in. You know what I mean? You're breathing that in. Yeah. So there's a lot of that. But the thing is that when we look at what's like cannot be irrefuted of just losses that the Americans have taken. Okay, the radars are the big ones. Okay, the bases, pretty much every American base is. I mean, there's still some functionality to it, but like again, you have to put all these airplanes out on the open tarmac. You know what I mean? And if you don't keep them in the area, and again, like you're not going to fight this war from Europe. You know what I mean? Like it's the the range is just too far. Like it's just too far to be practical. It doesn't matter the size of the Air Force. The only ones that can fight, say, that have the aircraft that are capable of, say, fighting from Europe, flying without tankers and back, would be like Su-27s, Su-34s, Su-30s, Russian stuff. Like the Russians, they were like, let's see, we built fighter. Okay. Oh, what kind of fighter do we need? Well, we've got big country, big fighter. Like, I mean, an Su-27 takes like 20,000 pounds of fuel, plus a drop tank of 600 gallons. You know what I mean? It has a 2,700-mile range. Everybody's like, oh, the Russians lack air-to-air refueling. But they don't really lack it. They have it. It's just they don't rely on it because, A, it's more expensive to have, like, your fighter's expensive enough to have in the air, let alone a big fucking airliner full of fuel. You know what I mean? And those airliners, they fly back to back. Like the KC-135s, like those guys are in the air 12, 14 hours at a time. And then you add up 3-4 weeks a month of this. How much maintenance? Like you can only fly these aircraft so far, and then hey, if they're down for maintenance for like 6 weeks, you know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? Like you can only work on things so fast. You can only swap out engines so fast. It's these airplanes are some of them were built in the 60s. Like look at the B-52s. The newest one is probably 70 years old. It's amazing. It's such a big structure. Like the B-52 is such a big structure of a bomber that it lasts just because of that. But at some point, you're just going to see wings folding on that thing from metal fatigue, right? Yeah, and then like I say, the only thing that's going to be able to fight these wars are going to be like B-1 Lancers, B-2 Spirits, and B-52s, right? That's the only thing that the Americans are going to be really able to send. Now, maybe you can put some drop tanks on some A-6 Prowlers, but now you're going back to an older aircraft that's even easier to detect on radar, even though it has probably one of the best radar jammers ever. Okay, so those could probably do it. The A-10s could probably do it with a drop tank. But now you're talking about sending A-10s in an area where there's F-4 Phantoms, maybe possibly even a handful of F-14s left, and a whole bunch of MiG-29s, and possibly Su-30s and Su-35s. They're not going to survive that. You know what I mean? You're not going to survive that. You'd be whacked out of the sky long before you'd even know that you're being shot at. Plus, ground air defense. Again, the ground air defense, like one Su-30, okay, sure, good idea, but for the price of one Su-30, how many anti-shipping missiles can you build? How many like MADPAD launchers can you get, or medium range or long range air defense missiles can you build? Like they got thousands of this stuff. Like they didn't build just enough to survive. The Iranians have built a strategy to win. You know what I mean? So I have no doubt that when the U.S., if Donald Trump is crazy enough to say, well, if we get all these troops killed, this way neocons think, is everybody will be just so shocked and awed that our guys got killed. It'll be like Pearl Harbor, everybody, or 9/11, everybody will rally around the flag. Look, they propagandized us and everybody talks about the propaganda after 9/11, but all the propaganda before 9/11, it was very subtle. To just plant that seed in your mind that someday this is going to happen to you. Like all this stuff, right? It was already planted in the movies. It was planted in, like I mean, think of the movie Back to the Future. The Libyan or Iranian terrorists, right? That they got the plutonium from, right? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they already had that planted. You know what I mean? Like, again, it's just like, okay, just make sure that, the public are already on board with that far. So when we really push the narrative, like Fox News, the Iranian terrorist nation, like everybody in Iran is a terrorist, right? So those little schoolgirls, yeah, they were terrorists. And all the other civilians that were killed, they're terrorists. I think the schoolgirls thing is, like you've got basically Kordarov over there in Russia saying, yeah, we're ready to fight the Americans in Iran. We're ready to help the Iranians. So you've already got basically Chechen rebels just like to fucking fight. Like there's no doubt about that. So yeah, they're fighting in the Donbass and stuff like that. against the Ukrainians, but they're also fighting, like all over the world. That's the Wagner Group is predominantly made up of guys from the Caucasus regions, uh, Chechen rebels. It's Kordorov's guys. It's Kordorov's guys. That's the Wagner Group, right? The Mozart Group was basically Western guys backing. Yeah, the Wagner Group and the Mozart. Yeah, you can't make it up. Or Wagner, if you want to. I think is how it's really pronounced. Wagner. Um, but basically the Varangian Guard is up alive and well. We'll just say that. But the thing is that the Iranians don't really need direct help, because everyone's like where they are getting help, and it's very clear that pretty much openly admitted by Putin that yeah, we are using satellite data to help. And again, you guys use satellite. NATO uses satellite data to help the Ukrainians target us. We're gonna give the Iranians satellite data so that they can hone in on your stuff. What are you gonna do about it, right? And Xi is like, yeah, like the same thing. It's like, yeah, no, we're gonna give them satellite data, whatever. They're our ally. You're hitting our assets in Iran too. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like this is the irony of it all, is that the Iranian war, okay, is multi-pronged. Like it's never just one thing. Yes, there's the Zionist evangelical doomers mixed with the Zionist Jewish Greater Israel Project, end times prophecy, red heifer burning, Holocaust stuff. But you have to understand, like in the Bible, the word Holocaust comes up thousands of times. Holocaust is basically the description from the Jews, is basically a bloodletting, burning sacrifice is what it means. That's the translation of Holocaust, right? So by hitting the school, on a Jewish holy day, and killing 165 girls or whatever it was, 170 girls, whatever the number was, hitting that 3 times and then hitting that same target a week later and killing all those people. Well, that's a blood sacrifice. That's a blood sacrifice for the Jews. And you can say, well, maybe they didn't do it on purpose when it just worked out that way, but it still works. Any sort of like killing all these soldiers on the beaches of Iran is probably going to be a part of the blood sacrifice, right? So there's that angle. And then there's just like your Lindsey Graham, evangelicals as well. But, like just like your other, neocons, well, we got to take down China. And the best way to take down China is cut off their oil supply from Iran and stuff like that, right? So, yeah, China knows that this war is about them as well. So they're involved whether they want to be or not. But the thing is that it's in China's best interest and Russia's best interest to deplete all the weapons that the United States would be using to defend itself against Russia and China. So, if anything, the Iranians are not going to only hold the line. Like, again, the idea, like I used to say that, yes, the United States could beat Iran, okay, but it'd take them a year and a half, right? And at like losses of like 500,000 people, whatever it would be for U.S. soldiers, it'd be just you'd lose like everything. Kind of what I say about China and Taiwan. Like Xi, like he's having those old generals killed off and disappeared the past 6 months, 8 months. All these fucking prominent generals and again, you see all these people like these, like anti-China people in the West. Don't get me wrong, I got my issues. I'm always bitching about China too, because they are a big threat. They're just not the threat the United States is. They're just a different type of threat. That's all. That oh, look at that, China's all these against democracy, taking out all these Cold War generals. Freedom of speech. I'm like, okay, you do realize the generals that he's killing, okay, are the guys that want the nuclear war with the United States. Like he's killing the lunatics. Like Xi is Donald Trump is not the most powerful man in the world. He is not. It is Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping, whoever he answers to, and there is groups that he answers to, like these big fucking dynasty go back 5,000 years, families that he answers to. I can't. Don't even ask the names. Like, you research it, you'll see what I mean. It's the same thing like Kim Jong Un. Like, and I guess his daughter might be the Black Dragon for all I know. I'll keep an eye on her. If she is, yeah, God help us. You know what I mean? But the thing is yeah, these people are all controlled to a degree. But the level that Xi is at, he is basically, he's above the Rothschilds. He's above them. So think about that. This man, okay, had generals killed that wanted to do the invasion of Taiwan. So Taiwan, like the thing is Xi postures when it comes to Taiwan. He's not a stupid man. He knows 100% that it's an impossible island to take at this point. Maybe in the future, again, like what Xi's doing, saying, "Whoa, let's see how this Iran thing plays out." Because if we can figure out how to overwhelm the THAAD systems, and we can figure out how to overwhelm, this, that, and the other thing, then we could, because like China, like their only way to get onto the island is to paratroop her in. But then you can't support the guys, right? You can't do the beach landings because, well, you get slaughtered because of all these, Taiwanese caves with fucking artillery in them, and anti-tank weapons and anti-shipping weapons. Like there's like Taiwan is like a whole new level. Like that's like, okay, the Iranians have, arguably been preparing for a war against the United States really heavily since 2010. But when they started to basically destabilize Syria, right? The Iranians go, oh fuck, we're right after them, so let's get ready. But you could go say, well, 2005 they started to get serious with their Iranian military, but it goes back, the 47 years or whatever, right? Okay. But Taiwan has been 60, 70 years of preparing for a war with China, right? Like they've been, preparing. Like the only way to take out Taiwan is you'd have to get all your diaspora there in time, which half the people in Taiwan are Chinese anyway. It's just they hate Taiwan, like they're Chinese defectors is basically what they are. So literally they are the kind of the same people. Like a hardcore Taiwanese will say they're not Chinese, but they're Han Chinese at the end of the day. But the thing is that like to take Taiwan is a logistics nightmare. Even the United States couldn't take Taiwan. It's Iwo Jima with cruise missiles. Again, Iwo Jima is like the benchmark, right? Like anything, like even modern day United States military would have a hard time with World War II Japan on Iwo Jima. You would still have a hard time with it. You would be successful, but you would probably, instead of losing 7,000 guys and, tens of thousands wounded over 36 days, you'd probably, okay, maybe you'd be there 18 days. You'd lose 2,000 guys. Yeah, whatever. And it would still be, you still wouldn't clear out the island. Like, what they don't tell you about Iwo Jima is that the Americans, they had a good chunk of the island, but there were Japanese on that island until 1946 before they surrendered and gave it up. You know what I mean? So they never fully took the island, despite what the history book says. The history books will contradict themselves, saying, "Oh yeah, they won the battle, they took the island," but there were still holdouts on the island that you couldn't get. Like they were in tunnels, you couldn't get them. These guys were like the United States and the Japanese were fighting with fucking flamethrowers at point blank range. It was brutal, absolutely brutal. It was the only way to clear the tunnels. Like after World War II, flamethrowers got. Banned from the Geneva Convention, right? Flamethrowers, one of the, like, again, when the United States, attacks Canada, you have to understand that's going to be a primary weapon. Trench clubs and flamethrowers. Why? They worked well in World War One. You walk along the trench, those guys in the trench, just crawl on your belly, turn on your tank, burn them all. Can you imagine? Do you ever see All's Quiet on the All's Quiet on the Western Front? That scene with the French soldiers and the German where they fucking, he's on his knees begging for his life and they fucking barbecue him with a flamethrower. But that was real. Like that happened. Could you imagine the guys that saw that, how traumatized they were? When we start talking about the drone pilots, you'll see what I mean. Um, so you're losing drones. You've lost the AWACS, which is going to cripple operations. The aircraft carriers are way the fuck out in the middle of nowhere, where they're really not that. They're not good. Like again, it's become the cost is becoming too high and too hard. So it's not even a like the Iranians. They have an interest in keeping this war going. They don't want their people killed, but they know that this is it. After this, we have to build nuclear weapons and ICBMs. And chances are Pakistan will give them the technology because Pakistan has already told Israel, you nuke Iran, we nuke you. So you're talking about the whole mad. And then of course, if the Pakistanis nuke Iran, guess the United States will nuke them and maybe the British or whatever. And then you got nukes flying all over the fucking world. And when one launches, they all launch. Like it's full Armageddon. You know, we're there. We're there. But the thing is that I don't like. You have to understand, like the Iranians, they know where the nuclear weapons are. They can hit them now if they want. They just don't want the burn off, right? Because it'll kill everybody with radiation sickness in the area. But they can. The same thing with the Dimona nuclear power plant. They can hit that right away too. They're hitting around it just to show that hey, we can target this thing. If we can hit it, not only hit an airbase, but hit an AWAC dead center of the radar dome on the top of the AWAC, we can fucking hit anything. Like when you think about the size of that target, sure, it's big. It's like a 30, 50 foot wide sphere. But that is a fucking small target from 1,000 miles away. Like that is like using a needle to hit the head of another needle. Like in concept, I thought, like it's unfathomable how accurate these things are. The Iranian accuracy is very, very accurate, and it just comes down to the replenishment rate. And again, their missiles are a tenth the cost of anything the United States is throwing at it, because again, everybody's like, okay, well, if you spend this much on your military is this good. Look, if the Ukraine war and the Azerbaijani-Armenian war showed you anything just before the Ukrainian war really took off, right, 2019, it showed you that you didn't need a $4 million tank to win a war. In fact, your tank was your liability, especially if it didn't have a cope cage. Like the Russians are still using their tanks, whatever, but they're not. They're like, okay, no, cruise missiles and drone warfare is really where, like the old World War II model has kind of died. And the Iran put the nail in that coffin, meaning you're not going to fight a war, planes, tanks, like D-Day style, airborne. You're not going to be doing that really anymore. Warships, aircraft carriers. The aircraft carriers virtually obsolete at this point. Mini carriers would make sense, but like drone carriers would make sense. Aircraft carriers don't make sense anymore. Mind you, if you use the U.S. Gerald Ford and said, okay, well, we're just going to put, like the Shahed style drones and just launch 10,000 drones from an aircraft carrier, that makes sense as long as those drones had like a 2,000 mile plus range, right? Which is kind of what it's needed. Like right now, the pilots flying three missions a day is like 10-hour missions. So like all these aircraft that were in the theater now have to be swapped out for other aircraft because of maintenance, right? And again, if the Iranians keep going and they get all these, again, there's like 109 air tankers that the Americans have. They had 64 in theater. Now, how many have actually been destroyed on the ground? We know like they've already lost about a dozen tankers, right? The tankers even more important than the AWACS. It's the linchpin for the whole thing. Without the tanker, the aircraft carrier has to get in too close, which makes you vulnerable not only for anti-shipping missiles on the aircraft carriers, but it also makes all the airplanes themselves will be threatened by air defense systems on takeoff, right? Because you're just too close range. Like you can't be 200 miles off the coast and expect to survive. Like you'll never outrun anything. Like like being 600, 700, 800 miles, 1,000 miles off the coast. Well, are you, you know what I mean? Like at that point, And all the ground bases are pretty much getting just fucking brutalized. And not only that, if you abandon all those bases to get all that tooling and all those parts out of there, you know what I mean? You have to fly back to Europe to get your aircraft fixed. You know what I mean? Like again, the maintenance. It's an it's unwinnable that way. And if you have all your fighter jets way too far off a station, the Iranians can bring out, like say MiG-29s or F-4 Phantoms or whatever, put some drop tanks on the F-4 Phantoms and go up and meet, the B-52s and the B-1 Lancers and stuff like that with no escort. It'd be a slaughter fest. You could take them out with the cannons, it would just be a slaughter fest. And then getting close air support, like look, the UAE, the Qatar, the Saudis, they're like telling the Americans, yeah, keep fighting this, take down the Iranians, take them down, and whatever. And they're like, well, we're going to help as much as we can because their military. Yes, the Saudi Arabia probably the most. Like Saudi Arabia, whenever there's like a weapons trade show, these guys, the princes go there and they buy like 10 of everything. You name the weapon, whatever weapon's available on the open market or black market, they can buy it. They got that Saudi wealth, right? But they buy this stuff, but they don't necessarily have the budget to run it. They don't have the manpower to run it. Like the problem with the, like for example, the Patriot crews, the Saudi Patriot cruises, they're firing off the missiles way too fast. They're depleting. So another 2 months, there's no more air defense whatsoever, right? Which means Su-24s can start doing bombing runs. And if all the forward bases are back, Iran controls the entire Middle East and the airspace. And then on top of that, they still already have the control of the world, 20% of the world economy. Like the Iranians have fired a major card here. Now that brings us to, well, what's left? Okay, well, just at that point, if you can't win the war, just kick over, like Donald Trump's, because he's a sore loser. That faggot's just going to fucking kick over the chessboard, right? Tip over the apple cart, so to speak. And what does that mean? Well, okay, if we can't take out Iran, we can make its people suffer by taking out the desalination plants, the food supply, storage, stuff like that, right? Now the Iranians, hopefully, while they were putting stuff in missiles, they put food, in these caves as well, in preparation to feed their, starving populace, right? So Donald Trump has no problem, and every time you hear these Fox News pundits saying we need to liberate the Iranian people, but then on the other side they're like, well, the Iranian terrorist regime. They mean them all. Like for the Greater Israel Project to work, there can be no Arabs, right? So this is why, like, if by some magical chance Israel and the United States can pull this off, which they can't. I mean, if they could, they would have. Like Iran was supposed to fold like a paper tiger, right? And it's just like they're just fucking racking up. Sure, they're getting more airstrikes in Iran, but at what cost? You know what I mean? Like when you lose an AWAC, like a couple of like little buildings here or there is not really comparable. Like that's a $500 million aircraft, and you may have lost 3 of them. You know what I mean? Like it's like wow, like $1.5 billion of aircraft gone. And you only have a handful of these things left, and the replacements are decades out. You know what I mean? Like again, just the losses themselves are just astronomical, and that's just the stuff that we can confirm. Imagine the stuff they're not telling us. Like how many soldiers are dead right now. Give it another month, 2 months, 6 months top, we'll know the numbers because people are going to start coming forward saying, "Look, I saw the list of the war dead." Like some people like they're getting the, the knock on the door. Yeah, sorry, your son just got vaporized by a rocket in Iran or a drone or something like that, right? And those people, like, obviously they're grieving and whatever. And then they're going to go say, look at the names of all 140, all 13 dead people. It's like, well, why is my son's name not on their father or whoever? Why they died, and then, hey, they say something other than something like, hey, well, everybody looks at the list, and it's like, of the wounded and the dead, there's like And then you just see all these people coming back wounded. Like, yeah, I got wounded over there. And there's like thousands of them. Like again, like Trump is in such a disaster right now. He doesn't know what to do because you can't beat the Iranians. Even if you nuke them, you can't beat them. Like you'll kill a lot of people, but you won't take out the entire country with the entire world's arsenal of nukes. Or maybe over like time it would kill everybody. But you know what I mean? Like you got to understand, like they'll endure it. You know what I mean? It would be hell, but the crimes against humanity that the United States is doing on behalf of Israel and Israel itself, like I mean, these people have fucked themselves for the rest. And one good thing is the mask is off about Israel. You know what I mean? Like we can't support any Jewish causes whatsoever. Sorry, it's too dangerous, right? But anyway, like it's one of those things that the rest of the world is going to be stepping away from that. It's always difficult in the beginning, but alternatives are going to come up, right? So rather than voting for another "I stand with Israel" politician, you can't do that anymore. So that means every right wing, even the like your Geet Wilders types, like people aren't going to vote for him because it's like no, he's not an alternative. He's in on it, right? Like saying "I stand with Israel" at all right now is a real like that is now the counter narrative, right? Like that is the hey, you can't do that. That is especially when okay, guys, here's my point of privilege card again. Okay, and my point of privilege card says no, fuck Israel. You know what I mean? They started this thing, right? No, it was the Americans dragged us in. No, you didn't. They're fighting your war, and to the tune where it's like America's going to invade, boots on the ground, Iran, and the Israelis, the fucking coward Israelis, are like, no, well, we don't want to sacrifice our guys because we're risk adverse. We can't lose a single Jew. You know what I mean? But you guys, you go die for us. Like it's fucking crazy. But yet here we are. Oh, you anti-Semitic? How dare you say that? But am I wrong? The Israelis are not going to participate in their own war. They want everybody else to die for them. This is what Trump is. This is why Trump is like, NATO, you got to come and die for Israel. And the rest of NATO is like, and everybody thinks that if the United States gets out of NATO, that's it for NATO. I used to think that too, but now I'm like, no. Actually, if anything, like the Nordic 7 proves that, no, we just see probably a rearrangement of it. And, like again, the breakup of NATO wouldn't be a bad thing. You could have the Nordic, Canada with the Nordic 7, and if the Americans still want to keep NORAD, whatever. But I think we have to start to plan a post NORAD world, right? Because especially Donald Trump, right? But I think Canada's already on top of that. Even though again, like our Arctic patrol ships are not true warships, but they're the only ship that can go up there and really patrol the Arctic. The Americans don't have anything like that. Nobody does. It's just us. You know what I mean? Like the Harry DeWolf class is a very, very cool. Like we got some of the coolest ships on the planet, guys. Our GSC. What's the designation? Anyway, our research and oceanographic ships that we're building. These things are so cool. And just like research the names, of our icebreakers and all these like geological ships that we got that we're building. And again, like every 6 months, there's like a new giant ship that Canada's building. It's cool. It's really, really cool. We got these little, catamarans that basically, in the St. Lawrence that basically do some really, really cool stuff, oceanographic stuff, like technology wise, like Canada has a lot to offer. It's just, we're very quiet about it. Like again, we have our own space agency beefing up now, you know what I mean? Like where we're just, double backing on NASA and the European Space Station or Space Union. We're now doing our own because, like Carney was saying, it's like, well, we need to have the ability to launch our own satellites. And he's right. It's okay. We're a long way from Cape Canaveral, but like we're already experimenting with what's the Elon Musk rocket that lands itself, those things. We're already starting to do that. Yeah, who knew, right? Canada can do that. Yeah, we can do anything, guys. We've held ourselves back in favor of the United States. This is where Carney's got the clean break, and he's taking advantage of it. So it's not about Carney; it's about the prime minister after him that's saying, you know what, Carney did good with the space station, but it's time we go to the moon. It's time. Speaking of the moon, Artemis 2. I haven't even had a chance because just this war thing is like that's what people should be freaking focused on, not some Zionist Jewish war, for the Greater Israel Project, and Zionist evangelicals who think they're Christians, they're not Christians. That want the end times prophecy and nuclear holocaust and just kill everybody. Like those fucking freaks need to go. We should all be saying, "Hey, this is a great thing. The Americans are going to the moon again. Hey, maybe we should let's have the planetary race. You know what I mean? Like, so you could make it the furthest, quickest, right? Let's go to Mars. Let's do this. Let's do that, right? But no. We have to have this stupid war. We have to have all these, temporary foreign workers, these woke people. We have to pay for all that stuff, right? And it's just like, like when are we going to get it? When are we going to get it? Like we don't need to do that stuff, but we're doing it because, like again, always pandering to the fucking minority. Maybe we need to pander to the majority who don't want the wars, who don't want the Greater Israel Project, shit like that. And again, the Jews, they reap what they sow. It's like they make their own. Like again, some of them, it's part of their religion to have everybody hate them, right? And I know it doesn't make sense to the average person, but when you understand it from a biblical point of view, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. It's a thing. And again, it's openly admitted by the rabbis. Again, go listen to all these radical rabbis. Most rabbis are radical, like imams. Like most of them are radical. Everybody's telling you to kill white. Whether it's the radical left, whether it's Jewish rabbis or Arab imams, it doesn't matter. They're all telling you to kill Whitey, right? When Whitey's going, it's still Whitey going to the moon, while World War III is going on and the global, the mass starvation's coming in, it's like, okay, yeah, Whitey can still take you to the moon, And that's what Whitey should be doing, is taking people to the moon, taking you to Mars, taking you to, Sirius, taking you to Titan. That's what we should be doing. You got to earn your way along the ship, but, no more participation awards. But as long as we're doing participation awards, we're never going to get to Mars. We're never going to get out of the solar system. That said, a little side note, I started reading the Chris Hadfield book, The Apollo Murders. I'm 10 pages in, and so far it's hitting the ground running. So I think he's going to be a really good novelist. So I got two Chris Hadfield astronaut books there. I got to get some Bob McDonald books too, because I was a big fan of his when I was a kid. I met him once, he does have a bobblehead though. He does. Bob McDonald. He does have a bobblehead. Nicest guy, like he's the nicest guy, but but anyway, I digress. Chris Hadfield is probably like the coolest astronaut, that we've seen in a long time. He is who he is, right? So Donald Trump's last kind of scorched earth is, okay, well, if we can't beat Iran, to declare a mission accomplished, we have to kill wreck all the food supply, the desalination plants, basically devastate Iran the same way we devastated Libya and Iraq and Afghanistan, and have all those people suffer for years and years and years and years, right? Create the poverty and destruction, right? Because they've hit something like 90,000 buildings in Iran, or 90,000 targets, whatever it is. Which you think of the cost of that. If there's like 2 hits per, wow, how is there any weapons left, right? But here's the thing: the Iranians are going to rebuild out of that, And the asset that our number one asset Iran has is its people. You know, that's an old saying. There was an Austrian painter that said that, and of course, he was like, yeah, a nation's most valuable thing is its people, and it's true. It's what makes a civilization. And Iran, yes, I agree with all the other people out there. Iran is a civilizational. They've been there the Persians have been there 2,700 years or whatever. You're not going to take them out of there. But the thing is that the Iranians are not just surviving a bunch of hits. Like they're not just sitting in these caves or whatever. Like sitting out the air. The air raids. They're not doing that. They're shooting things down. They are contesting their airspace. They're saying, no, you cannot fly here. We will shoot you down. We will shoot down your state-of-the-art aircraft. We will take out. Not only that, when you drop your bomb, you head back to your aircraft carrier. We're going to send something after you. You use your drones. We're going to hack your drones, steal your drones. Again, we don't know how many drones have been probably stolen out of this conflict, right? Because again, the Iranians do have, and the Chinese have the ability to jam these drones, the Predators, the Reapers, or whatever. So these things, a lot of them are like, there's probably, if we know that 12 have been shot down for sure, it's probably more like 120 of them got shot down. Because there's thousands of these things, right? But here's the deal. If you take out Iran's desalination plant, they've already done a tit for tat. You hit one of theirs, and they're like it's an understanding. And there's about 400 desalination plants across the Middle East on the Gulf states, right? Iran has a few, and back during I don't know if it was Desert Storm or whatever. The Iraqis basically dumped a whole bunch of oil in the ground into the Gulf to basically plug up some of these desalination plants, right? They had to work day and night to make sure that they could deal with extract the oil out of the Gulf so that it wouldn't, and we had a tanker that now is leaking oil, at an area where there are desalination plants, right? And if those go through, you'll wreck the plant. You'd have to disassemble everything, right? Because people can't drink oil in their water, right? But out of the 400 plants, if you took out even half of those plants, it would be a drought. Like, people would die within days. There's about 160 million people across the Gulf states, right? All told, or something like that, or 60 million, whatever it was. I heard last night, but a shit ton of people, millions and millions of people. You would never be able to evacuate these people, like, no matter what. Like, you would die of thirst. Water everywhere, water everywhere, not a drop to drink, right? You know what I mean? Like, if you think about it, again, the 3 minutes without air, the average person dies. 3 days without water, the average person dies. 3 weeks without food, the average person dies. You wouldn't live long enough to starve to death. You know what I mean? You wouldn't live long enough to starve to death. And it's not just the desalination plants, it's the power systems that run them. You take out one or you take out the other, it's almost like a mirror effect, right? And the thing is that the Iranians, maybe 10% of their water comes from desalination. Yes, they've got water problems, but most of their water is from aquifers, right? Which means they'll be fine. It'll be rough, but they'll be fine. But the Gulf states, their drinking water is basically 80%. Some countries higher than others. There was a whole chart I saw last night. But overall, it's about 60 to 80% of their water comes from desalination, right? And it's not like, okay, well, we're just going to ration the water. It doesn't work like that. You're either dying of thirst or you're not. It's not okay. Well, like the average person needs, like to drink a shit ton of water in the Middle East. Even the people that are climatized to the Middle East, you know what I mean? It's just, the coldest winter day is probably hotter than our average hottest summer day in the West. You know what I mean? It's a fucking desert, right? Yeah, sure. There's some places like up in the mountainous regions where it goes below zero and stuff like that, but that's up in the mountains, right? Problem is, there's no water up there either. It's just dry and arid. You know what I mean? It's a desert. So the problem is if they even hit like say 10% of these things, it would already create the water crisis. And then you got to think of everything that needs water cooling, data centers, shit like that, computer centers, all that stuff runs on cooling, air conditioning. Oh yeah, that. Nuclear power plants, shit like that. Yeah, so you can see like water is the number one Achilles heel of the Middle East, right? Muammar Gaddafi understood this. That's why, like that giant aquifer, what he was going to do, he was going to sell oil outside the U.S. dollar, and he was going to basically pipeline. Like Libya found the largest underground water aquifer in the Middle East to date so far, and the U.S. bombed it so that the Middle East couldn't prosper because Muammar Gaddafi, yes, he was a dictator, but he also understood that if I could pipeline water across North Africa and the rest of the Middle East, well, you could stabilize the region a lot, and it would be a fresh water supply that could supply millions, maybe 500 million people, right? That would be the biggest humanitarian aid thing that could be done in the Middle East. You could grow crops, you could do this, you could do that. Like the world would be their oyster. They could green the desert more. You know what I mean? But no. We had to bomb Libya because Israel said so, because it was a part of the Greater Israel Project. That's why they hit the food supplies first. That's why they hit the water supplies, the energy. That's why the United States bombs all that first, so it kills the most amount of people. They use the argument that, well, okay, we're going to bomb the electricity, which will cut off the air conditioning and everything like that, so that people take to the streets and riot. No, as soon as you knock out the power, the people in the hospitals start to die. They can only run generators so long. You know what I mean? People die of heat exposure. It's complete evil that's allowed, right? Well, it's not allowed. It's just they do it and they can get away with it. Because, again, there's no rule of law. The law enforcement, the military is going to uphold the rule of law? They won't even go after the Epstein people, right? You know what I mean? They're calling this the Epstein American War, like the Epstein class Israeli war. Like it's that's what they're calling it. That's what the world is calling it. Like this is again, if you watch those like Lego. Again, the Lego propaganda from the Iranians, Trump, lying in bed, and there's like these little girls and kids around, and then when his like all the dead children around him and stuff like again, the mockery of it, whatever propaganda of it is very clever because it's like it's just you're a part of the Epstein class. You're in the files. You're bombing us. And again, the left thinks that's what this war is about. No, this war goes back 4,000 years. You know what I mean? Like it goes back. It's a Jewish war. It's a blood libel from way the fuck back, right? The Greater Israel Project was the plan in the 1986 or 1982, 1981, whenever Odi Gion came up with wrote the book. I would like to get a hold of that book just to read it, just to see how this guy told us step by step exactly how they're going to do it. These people are not clairvoyants. These people, it's like Albert Pike. He wasn't a clairvoyant. He was just telling you what the plan was. Why? Because psychopaths will say things out loud. And I forget what there's a Jewish name for it. It's something that where they have to tell you what they're going to do to you just so that they can dodge karma. I forget. There's a name for it anyway. Where they're like, okay, yeah, we're going to do all these horrible things to you. And if you go along with, too bad to be you. It's kind of like manufacturing consent. It's an ancient Hebrew way of manufacturing consent amongst the goy, right? So that's what it is. And again, it's not my words, it's theirs, right? But how dare you criticize, right? But yeah, look, Trump is in. If he goes scorched earth on Iran, Iran can completely, like, the people will not be able to get out. Like Israel, like the Israelis, I think about 7 to 9 million Israelis are about to die, and they don't even know it. Look, the IDF is out there saying that, like, there's no IDF guy out there saying, hey, we need to rethink this and maybe call off the war and see if we can make peace with Iran or anything like that. No. Like, we need to double down and just get more meat for the slaughter, right? Because they're insane. We need to execute Palestinian prisoners. Like that's like that's what they're working on right now. Like, again, it's insane. The crimes against humanity that Israel's been allowed to do for decades and decades and decades, because everybody's too afraid to call them out. Like, I think those days are coming to an end. Like, look, we went and bombed the shit out of Bosnia and Sarajevo, Croatia, to get Milosevic, right, for crimes against humanity, for genociding, people, stuff like that. Okay, fine, but yet Israel gets a free pass all the time. Where's all the sanctions? You know what I mean? Oh, but the Iranians are the terrorists. Well, it's the Middle East. They're all terrorists. Like, why are we there? You know what I mean? But yeah, so my hunch is that Israel is looking for a way to get ready to nuke Iran somewhere, but it's not going to work, because I think the second you do that, like, you won't get those nukes out of there fast enough before the Iranians can hit it with rockets, right? And I think that's what they're doing, because, like, they're hitting weapons industries, they're hitting everything, they're hitting critical, anything that could build the war effort. They're hitting chemical warfare or chemical plants, critical infrastructure, and again, the Iranians are just methodically working down the list. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, they're taking hits, but like this, okay, you lost an IRGC building. Okay, you lost a chemical plant. That's now poisoning your people because of the burn off, right? You lost, research facilities. You lost, again, how many IDF soldier brass have been killed? No one's ever going to know. No one's going to tell you the truth on that. How many Iranian generals have actually been killed? You're gonna, like, again, we're never going to know. Like, how many CIA guys got killed in these motels? We're never going to know, right? Like, my hunch is that thousands of people have been killed, like U.S. soldiers and stuff like that, that have probably been killed or wounded. Like, this idea that, like, you can do that much destruction. I mean, when you look at the satellite photos, like, either there's absolutely nobody on the bases whatsoever, okay, which is a possibility, but then, what's protecting the bases? Nothing, right? So when do the Iraqi rebel groups go into, like, what's the biggest, Al Adid or Al Tap? Al Tap, I think, is one in Syria. But that big giant, it's the biggest base in the Middle East, American base. It's just full of weapons, full of this, full of that. And you've got Iraqi rebel drones just flying around, knocking out Black Hawk helicopters and whatever. Now, they seem to have a limited amount of drones, but that's going to grow. That's going to grow. Those proxy groups, like, it does seem like they are encircling all the American bases. Right? So they haven't invaded, but it's like, okay, well, if they're going, like, if these Iraqi and I can imagine there's, like, other sympathizers throughout the entire Middle East, like, these proxies, they must be encircling all these, embassies. Well, we know the embassies are encircled by, like, all kinds of protesters and stuff like that, to the point where they're shooting them. They shot ones in Pakistan. Every embassy, American embassy, pretty much around the world has people protesting in front of it right now. Everywhere. But the ones in the Middle East, yeah, they're basically, they're probably being encircled by Iranian proxies that would say, okay, yeah, we're watching. Okay, look, there's 400 soldiers here. Bang, hit it with a missile. Because they know where these things, these targets are probably pre-planned. Okay, there's 8 guys in there. Don't waste a missile. There are 80 guys. Send a missile. Okay, there's like 2,000 civilians in there. and 200 soldiers. Okay, we got to figure out what floor they're on before we whack them. You know what I mean? We'll send the drone instead of the rocket. Because the rockets would knock out every motel in the area. And if you did that, where the fuck are the Americans going to stay? What, they're going to sleep in tents in the middle of the desert? Yeah, they tried that. It's not too comfortable. They do it, but it's not comfortable. And then knock out the desalination. No, I think these American troops like it's 10,000 now. Like the number just keeps getting more grandiose, and then there's going to be 50,000 going. Like even if you send 1 million U.S. troops, they cannot take Iran. You won't take their shores. Karg Island is a fucking pipe dream. Like it's not the island itself. It's just you'll never get to the island alive. You know what I mean? Like it's this idea that again that the Iranians are, they're driving around with jeeps that have, similar to the Humvees that they turned into what they called the Avengers. They got like 8 Stinger missiles on it for shooting down drones and a little 50 cal, right? Those are very, very clever to have. They work good because you can have lots of them and they're cheap. It's basically a pickup truck with a missile in it. They've got delivery trucks with missiles in it, like short range air defense. And they got them all over the place. For every truck that you hit, there's like a 1 in maybe 50 chance that you're going to hit an Iranian asset, but you're probably going to be just blowing up goat cheese and hummus trucks. You know what I mean? It's like Iran's going to suffer like a pickled turnip or pickled beet shortage or something like that. I don't know. I love pickled beets. They are good. It's like what do you call it? The shawarma shop cost. You know what I mean? Whatever we can do. But yeah, no, the Iranians, if they take out the water plants, that'll be a humanitarian crisis never before seen in human history. In such a short amount of time. Like you're talking within a week, like almost 100 million people dead. Just again, you can't walk your way out of the desert without dying. Like there are people that do it, but like it's the amount of people you lose along the way is just like even if you can make it to the coast, just getting the boats back and forth to flood a million people a week into Europe. Yeah, like it doesn't matter if they get to Europe, especially if they got to Europe this time of year. You're going to freeze to death. There's not enough shelters. You know what I mean? You can't build it fast enough. People will just die. And even if you could build it fast enough, putting an extra 1 million people per week on your food supply, you're not going to have a food supply. Do that for 10 weeks, 10 million. Like there's not enough crops. The supermarkets will be bare. Like there's already people stocking up, and I'm hearing Normie Normans, that are finally starting to get it. That they're starting. Maybe I'm going to stock up on at least toilet paper. We saw what happened in 2020. Top priority. I'm like, okay, guys, like use leaves. Okay, go buy some reusable baby diapers or something. Use those. Like wipe your butt with something else. Like okay, go get your toilet paper, but like buy food. You'll work out the toilet paper thing a different way. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, I digress. Use leaves in the summertime. Whatever you got to use. You know what I mean? Just be careful of the leaves. Be careful of the leaves. Don't use poison ivy or poison oak or poison sumac or, God forbid, poison parsnip or something like that. So what I'm getting at is that we're at a point where you can't really fly fighters over Iran. Like there's this idea that the Americans have complete air superiority. The fact that you lost the most expensive of AWACS and the most advanced of AWACS, maybe 3 of them, definitely 1, tells me that no, you do not have air superiority. Because if you did, there would be no way for the Iranians to hit you back, right? The Iranians are they're still selecting targets. They're still firing between 30 drones a day and 40 rockets a day. Cruise missiles, they don't seem to send out too many cruise missiles. I think they're saving those for the, for the carrier groups or whatever. And again, what's Donald Trump is doing is trying to shame people into sending their navies in to get destroyed to clear the way, right? It's just, no. And not only that, the Iranians are actually still making money off the Strait of Hormuz because they've got a toll there now. They were going to work it out with Oman, and say, okay, look, you can charge on your side, we'll charge on our side. But now it's like, no, we're taking it all. You know what I mean? Yeah, so, okay, the drones. Okay, let's get into the drones because I got to get other stuff done today, too. But the drones, okay, back during the Obama years when the left didn't, was just calling everybody racist, bigot, because how dare you criticize Obama on anything, right? The only reason why the left is against this war now predominantly is because of the, it's against Trump, right? I wish they had more consistency than that, but in general, no. There's very few left-wing people that were actually against the war. Some, yes. Some were, okay, like, for example, Cenk Uygur. I can't stand the guy from the Young Turks, and Anna Kasparian. At least they called out Obama on the drone strikes. At least they did that. George Bush did 56 drone strikes, which was an outrage because that right-winger murderous Nazi did all this stuff, right? Okay, fine. Under the whole entirety of 19 years of war in Iraq, right? Basically, they fired something like it was like maybe 600 Tomahawk missiles or something like that the entire time. This 30-day war, they've exceeded the amount of Tomahawks. It's in the thousands that they've fired, like 3,000-4,000 Tomahawks that they fired. Almost depleted half the stockpiles. Even older, newer, doesn't matter, right? Now, here's where it gets crazy, is that Obama took the drone strikes from 56 to over 1,200 drone strikes killing women and children and stuff like that. And, maybe a handful of like maybe rebels or whatever, sure, were killed. But maybe about 100 of them were killed. The rest were all women and children and stuff like that, collateral damage. Here's a wedding. There's Abu Durka, whatever, terrorist guy, okay, at a wedding, okay, kill him, but you killed 60 other people, right? And that's considered collateral damage. At first, you were only allowed to kill something like 30 people. Then the Israelis brought it up to 36, and then they brought it up to 60. Now it's just kind of like, if there's a bad guy there, kill him. Doesn't matter how many, you can kill 1,000 people, doesn't matter, right? And then Ron Paul talked about this as collateral damage, that every time you kill one innocent civilian, you create 10 more terrorists, right? It's blowback. Paul Craig Roberts always referred to it as that Israel and the United States always has to have an enemy to fight. Well, if you make an enemy of every single fucking country in the world, you'll always have people to fight, and the weapons industry will make money, right? It's Max Kaiser's theory of death and debt-based economy, which he was 100% right on that. You take the petrodollar, or we drop democracy JDAMs on you, right? Exactly what's happening with Iran. It doesn't have a Rothschild bank. I think North Korea and Iran are the last two countries with a Rothschild bank. Even China has a Rothschild bank. But the Rothschilds thought, with George Soros, that he was saying like, oh yeah, we're gonna, the pivot to Asia. Asia, when they say pivot to Asia, they mean pivot, the new Chinese century, right? China will not control the world because they don't have the power to do that yet. The pivot to Asia is going to be it'll split the world in half. Anglo-American Empire versus Eurasian Pacific Empire, which I've explained many times. Anglo-American Empire, Canada, United States, Mexico's now on the fence. Europe, Israel, petrodollar, right? Eurasian Pacific, Russia, China, Iran, BRICS nations, and other African nations, whatever, outside the petrodollar. India playing both sides. And same with Brazil, they kind of play both sides, right? But here's the thing, when you get these drone operators out of the U.S. Armed Forces or any armed forces around the world tend to have one of the highest PTSD rates and also one of the highest suicide rates. The reason being is here's what's so sick about drones. This is why they want AI data centers and all that stuff. It's not so you can get better, make better memes and better pictures, AI pictures. No, it's for this very reason. Look, they are using AI data to do targeting in Iran. It doesn't work. Why? Because it's the AI is not sentient. It's clever. It's fast. It can calculate faster than a human being. Sure, but it'll never have the nuances of. Have you ever seen the movie I Robot with what do you call him Will Smith, where he talks about like when he was trying to save the drowning girl, and the robot saved him because it calculated that he was a better likely candidate for survival. And he goes, the difference is I would have still saved the girl because that's the difference between humans and robots is that like it doesn't matter. You would do like you wouldn't make that calculation. You know what I mean? Like as a human being, you would save the child before you'd save yourself. Theoretically, right? None of the Epstein people would, but like normal people would, right? And that's where you get into this drone thing. So the drone pilots, these drones can fly, like they've got, especially on the bigger drones, like the Reaper drones. The Predator drone is the slightly smaller one and probably the more numerous, and that's what seems to be they're using up the Predator drones first because, they're expensive enough. They're like 30 million to 36 million bucks a piece, right? Depending on the variant. And the Reapers, I can imagine, are even more than that. And then you've got the Q4, the Q9s, and then you've got the Q5 and the Q150, the Q180, all these drones. The Q150 and the Q180 are like flying wings and stuff like that. They're like the stealth. And the Iranians have been able to steal those since 1995 or 2005, right? Or 2015 or whatever. It's the last time they hijacked one of those drones. But here's where it gets interesting. So you're a drone pilot, okay? And if you take the European man's psyche, right? The Western man's psyche, the white guy's psyche, right? Who grew up on, Richard the Lionheart, Henry V, the Black Prince, Prince Edward, stuff like that, chivalry, you meet, Vikings, whatever, you meet your man, like you fight mano a mano, whatever, okay? Or even like World War II, your grandfather fought, Germans, toe to toe, they fought Japanese toe to toe, whatever it was, right? And it was honorable. It was very honorable, okay? Desert Storm, guys come in. There's drones just starting to really make a debut. But your Abrams tank uncle or grandfather or whatever, or father, he at least shot an Iraqi tank, from the gun sight, right? Of the tank. The A-10, yeah, he went down, he strafed, whatever. Okay? Vietnam, same thing, okay? Like your great-grandpa or grandpa basically did the napalm run over the village, right? So it was done, like that was traumatic enough for most men. Like I say, World War I with the fucking flamethrowers and trench clubs. Can you imagine the brutality? You can't. You can't imagine what it's like to take some guy's head off screaming and try it while he's trying to kill you and stab you in the eye with a bayonet, right? Like you can't imagine what that's like to a grapple of life or death like that. You can't imagine. You got a bayonet half shoved into your chest while you're bashing the guy in the side of the head with a trench club with barbed wire and razor blades on it. You can't imagine with his brain splatter on you while shit's blowing up around you. You can't imagine what it's like to look into the guy just as you fucking barbecue him with the flamethrower, or you're the guy getting flamethrower. You know what I mean? Like you can't imagine what that's like. Or just sitting in a trench somewhere and all of a sudden, here comes in 3 hand grenades. Or you're sitting there in Ukraine and suddenly here comes these fucking drones that are hunting you down. You don't know they're there until they're 15 feet away from you at a missile range. You know what I mean? You don't know what it's like to beg for your life, right? You're not going to know. And that's bad enough. Now, be the guy that has no risk. You're going to say, yeah, I'd do that. Okay, now you fly. Okay, yeah, here's your mission. You got to wait this place. Okay, yeah, as soon as I say I'm going to fucking zap them, we got the green light, whatever. Or maybe we have to call and get the green light. Oh, okay, here's our guy. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, we got the green light. Oh, here's his kids coming out to meet him. Okay, watch him for a week, see who comes and visits him. So you watch this guy for a week, a month, whatever, every day. The drone's so far out of range that they can't hear it buzzing around, right? Because, you know, the optics can read out 20 miles or whatever, so they don't even know it's there. Guy doesn't even know he's being watched. You see him kiss his wife in the morning when he goes to do whatever he's going to do. You see him playing with his children. You see all his guests, whatever, having that, you know, the family goat barbecue, whatever they're doing, right? And then you get the order. You gotta whack him. So you kill him with your Hellfire missile. Doesn't even know it's coming. Bang. You see the look. You basically see him being vaporized in front of you, just as his children come out the door, right? And then you got to. That's not half of it. That's bad enough. So you have to live with that. Now you have to confirm he's dead. You have to get the perfect confirmation. So you got to get that optics in so close and so detailed. So while you're going over all the bodies, you have to go over all the bodies of the children. You know, so you see maybe a head and a torso. Maybe you see no head, or the head's flattened in and the arms and legs are blown off and they're charred. You see the wife plastered on the wall, you know, basically half, you know, completely, you know, shrapnel mutilated. You know, all the clothes burnt off and just, charred body. And then you see him, whatever. Now you got to go home, take that home, and make sure you stop and grab some groceries on the way home. Get a bag of, a thing of milk. That's right, you guys in the States don't have bags of milk. Yeah, we have bags of milk up here in Canada. You probably didn't know that. We also have ketchup chips. You know, that's what's wrong with the States, is they don't have ketchup. If they get ketchup chips, we'll get world peace. I'm telling you. But anyway, yeah. So you got to carry on, and then you got to go to the. Oh, okay, well, I got to go to the meet my relatives, whatever. So you're 19 years old. You just killed a whole bunch of people, including children. And then you got to go to, because your mom and dad are like, oh, you got to make it to the family shindig, blah, blah, blah. Don't be late, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, no excuses, right? And you get there and there's little kids running around while you just fucking murdered a bunch of kids, for Uncle Sam, right? And then you got to act like that's normal. But that's not going to fuck with you, you know what I mean? And if it doesn't fuck with you, then there's something really wrong with you, right? So that's why, like, drone pilots, they quit. And, you're not allowed to quit or you get court-martialed, right? It's like, no, I can't do this, so that's why they're actually trying to get rid of these things. It's like the Reapers and the Predators, because they have to be manned. Like the F-16 pilot or the A-10 pilot, he sees the vehicle on the ground and the guy's running, but he doesn't see the look in their eyes. You know what I mean? Unless he flies really low, but even at that. Like, he sees the guys manning the Zu-23 and he vaporizes them with the Gatling gun, right? The thing about that is, it's not the same as the drone guy who has to zoom right in on the guy's, basically zoom right in on his face to make sure he's dead. It's not the same. It's just not the same. And no risk. No, just completely cold killing. Now, the same thing, you'd say, well, yeah, but what about these drone operators in Ukraine? Well, drone operators and snipers have something in common with PTSD, is that it becomes really personal for them. Charles Whitcock, or Hathcock, the Vietnam sniper. Listen to that guy talk. Tell me he's right in the head. He's not. He's fucked up. He's fucked up big time. Now, there's guys that get off on it, sure. There's guys that, no matter what, they're fucked up. Like, that's where your mercenaries come from. Like, mercenaries come from guys that were normal, they went into battle, and then they can't get over it. You know what I mean? They can't function in society. The only thing they can do is go back to the battlefield and hope to get killed and make a bit of money while they're at it. That's, and then there's, like I say, just the freaks and weirdos that actually get off on it and enjoy it. So this is what comes after the Q9 and the Reapers and stuff like that. Is very simple. Is that it's going to be AI intelligence making the judgment call to kill people. That is going to be a fucking disaster. And it's going to be a PR disaster, but the thing is nobody's going to be held to account. Why? Because it's all automated. This is what they want for, it's absolutely, it's Skynet. It's worse than Skynet. And the symbiont AI. There's no such thing as symbiont AI. It doesn't exist. It's clever. It can do things. But even the AI can't say gripping right. Gripping. Like they can't fucking say that fucking word. And that's supposed to make the judgment call whether somebody should live or die. I don't know, maybe you hold up your, hey guys, I got my point of privilege card, you can't drone strike me. You know what I mean? But think of the sick bastards, in the Pentagon, in Washington, in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, coming up with all this murderous stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, we got to find a more efficient way to kill people. So, again, we got to outsource it to the AI so that we can have, basically unaccountable murder. It's pure evil, pure evil. Like drones make sense, and so like if you're just out there to kill people, yeah, it makes sense to do it that way. But you have to lose your humanity to do that. Like think of the guy that not only hit the school, finding out that he's the one that bombed the school, whether it was from the jet or from the drone, and only go back and hit it a couple hours later. You know what I mean? Like how does that guy square that peg? You know what I mean? Like this is why, like Air Force pilot, like you don't let Air Force pilots run the war because they'll just bomb everything, right? Because they don't see it. There's cell phone footage out there of apparently of not just the rocket attacks, but like these like basically drone attacks, right? Like there's tons of people surviving these drone attacks. There's some guy just recently was like on the ground during an A-10 attack. Can you imagine that? Like you know what I mean? Yeah, evil, pure evil. This war is a war of evil. And it is good versus evil. I'm not saying the Iranians are technically the good guys, but what I'm saying is this puts the weapons industrial complex on display of how fucking evil it is. Because it's a war of choice that just didn't need to happen. And all these Fox News boomer talking points of, well, they've been basically terrorizing us for 47 years. But we can't name you one direct, but they have proxy groups when we've armed ISIS and Al-Nusra and Al-Qaeda and Nusra Front and ISIL, all these, rebel groups in Syria, moderate rebel groups, which is now, again, you got the Al-Qaeda guy who was on the CIA's most wanted list, is now the guy that Washington's giving bless, who fucking invited, Donald Trump invited this cocksucker and said, oh yeah, he's a real nice guy. The most genocidal fucking maniac invites him right to the White House. Like all these U.S. veterans going, you do realize his men have killed my guys, right? You do realize it. Oh, he's a good guy, blah, 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 because, he does what's expedient for us, right? And that's it exposes, like, the psychopathy of Donald Trump. Like, he's complete void of any empathy whatsoever. The man has no soul. He is no soul. Him, Jared Kushner, I can imagine Ivanka's the same as well. Like, these people, like his kids, again, these people making billions of dollars, not millions, billions of dollars off of this death and destruction. After they sold people on the peace program. Like Eric Trump, again, he's making money off these death drones. You know what I mean? What happened to his fucking libertarian stances? I thought he was the good guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. No. It's horrible. They're all in on it. There are no good guys, right? That's the thing. But yeah, the drone thing is a big problem. But the bigger problem is the capability loss. So my hunch is that the Iranians are probably knocking down these drones probably willy-nilly. Because if you don't have the ground radars, you don't get to detect the rockets coming in and the drones coming in easily. Meaning your fighter jets have to be in the air with their radars on, even if they're over the, Gulf states. The Iranians know they're there. They'll be able to target them. It's just, are they within range of the air defense or not? The second is that these you know, you get less time to respond on that. Okay, so that means the bases, they're pretty much obsolete now because they can be hit at any time. You can't land your aircraft on the bases because rockets can destroy their, again, like I say, every couple of weeks we're going to get satellite data from the Chinese showing, yeah, here there was 60 aircraft on 40 to 60 aircraft on this runway, including drones and all that, and like we could have destroyed 40 drones on the ground. Now your missions for the night that were all programmed into these drones, you know what I mean? Like your drone operators, sure, they're safe, whatever, but they got nothing to fly. You know what I mean? So now the only thing that can go up is the remaining fighter aircraft and the stuff from the aircraft carriers. But wait, you're losing tankers. Now your fighter jets can't get in over close to the target enough without having the aircraft carrier have to come in close, right? So they don't have the range. So it's just logistics nightmare after logistics nightmare. So each week it's going to become easier for the Iranians to knock out whatever they want. So the Iranians, like I say, if they want to kill all their opponents, all they have to do is take out the desalination plants. And if they want to make sure they can kill every American, take out all the tankers, destroy all the amphibious stuff and all the airliners, which they're kind of doing. Once they start taking out the amphibious stuff, the Americans won't be able to back away. You know what I mean? They won't be able to get their guys out of there. So the nightmare that's coming to the Middle East is bad enough, just from the fallout from this war. But globally, everybody's feeling it at the pumps already. Like it's not even like a month in, and it's not like, okay, there's going to be a delayed effect by a month or two before you feel it. No, you're already feeling it now, but you're not going to feel the full effects of it for probably about 6 months to a year. Now, in 6 months to the year, when you see 4 to 6 billion people literally starving to death because we don't have the natural gas, like 20% of the world's oil got shut down. Okay, that's one part of it. But the second part of it is about 8% of the world's fertilizer just got shut down. How many people died? Because of Trump and Israel and all the people that went along with him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's pure evil. Pure evil. It's beyond genocide. We thought like the COVID thing was like the biggest, crime against humanity. But I think this is another level. You wouldn't think they would be able to top that, but they did. And again, all these people that still, safe and effective vaccines, you're just a conspiracy. The Epstein file people are the same people that told you those vaccines were safe and effective. And Trump, again, with warp speed, he's in on it. Like that gave it away right there. Like, I mean, yeah, he's in on it. He's not against Bill Gates. Bill Gates is still talking about how to depopulate the world. They just found another way. We're going to starve everybody out. That's what all communist. Henry Kissinger, hope he's burning in hell, but he said it right. Control the food, control the population. Okay, I guess I've gone on long enough for today, but it does seem like the war has kind of backed down. I think it's just because the United States is getting its abilities crippled. That's never been seen since, we've never seen that before, right? Like a near peer-to-peer military, like the Iranians have a superior, dare I say, their war tactics are superior to the American, to Washington, anything Washington could do. Like nukes won't take them out. You know what I mean? It's not going to work. You know what I mean? And once you get all those tankers gone, and after that, and all the AWACS gone, like again, the AWACS is the eye in the sky, right? The tanker is what keeps the war going. These short-ranged Super Hornet, like the Super Hornet has slightly, maybe an extra 200-mile range over the F-18, which only has about a 600-mile range, maybe 700 on a good day. Maybe get 800 to 900 miles off of the Super Hornet, 800 to 900-mile range off of an F-35. You get a little bit more out of an F-15 if you don't hit the throttles too hard. You maybe get a 800 to 1,200-mile range, maybe 1,600-mile range with a drop tank. But then you can't maneuver, right? And if you got missiles coming up on you, have a 600-gallon drop tank under your aircraft or a 300-gallon or whatever it is, you're not going to be able to dodge missiles with that, with that kind of weight on there. Once they take out all the tankers, all the air bases are pretty much out. At that point, it's like, I think what the Iranians are doing is saying, just leave. Just take your guys and go. You're out of the Middle East. You're not going to be allowed to, Like, you're never going to step foot in the Middle East again. But the Gulf states are like, don't leave. We need, like, you started this war. If you leave, we're going to lose everything. You know what I mean? Like, the Iranians are going to control the entire Middle East. They might not like say, okay, we're running your government, you're running your government, you're running your government. No, but they're going to say, okay, no, you can have your military, right? Whatever, but you can't host American bases. If you attack us on behalf of Israel or support Israel in your attacks against Israel's attacks against us, we hit you. You know what I mean? Now, mind you, the Israelis, they're firing stuff as well, like at like Turkey and stuff like that, and blaming it on Iran, it seems. Because the Iranians, like, they wouldn't, this idea that they're like, they'll hit this, but then they'll say, no, we didn't hit that. Like, it's like, I'm not saying the Iranians are not lying, but it's like, it seems like, no, there's no benefit for them to lie. Like, the Israelis will kill Americans just to get a rally around the flag. They don't mind making those sacrifices. They'll do it. So they're going to do false flags and stuff like that in the United States. The CIA is going to do false flags in the United States to get a rally around the flag. So, forget, okay, well, we got to go and avenge, the Americans. But you have to understand, the Iranians probably looking at that and say, well, when they do their false flags, we'll hit them. Because if it's like a mall blows up or something like that, or like attacks on the civilian population that have no strategic value whatsoever, it's probably going to be the CIA or Mossad or whatever doing that. But if it's like, okay, like, because why? Because if I'm the Iranians, okay, if I'm sending my submarines, which there's still 2 Kylo submarines, that's 36 torpedoes, right? My hunch is they're off the coast of the United States. Why? Because I'm going to use those submarines to sink some other submarines in port. I'm going to sink warships in port. I'm going to sink, destroyers in port. I'm going to sink aircraft carriers in port. Why? Because that's the stuff you're going to fight me with, right? That's what I think they would do. Or I might fire a cruise missile inland to the Pentagon or to Washington. So it depends on the target's hit. So whenever the big attack comes, and then of course there's just going to be the sympathizers, the crazies, the property of Allah shirt wearers. You know what I mean? Yeah, those guys will just attack John Q. Public. Yes, they're going to drive, basically plow trucks through people, and we know what the peace trucks do, right? And they're all over the place. So yeah, that's unavoidable at this point. So jihad is going to be here. There's no doubt about that. The House of Islam is going to be here. There's no doubt about that. But the thing is that it's not going to live long because yes, people will fight it on the home front, but they're not going to just they're going to say, yeah, we know that these guys, we have to stop them and whatever, and we're against all these whatever. These people should have never been here in the first place. Trump going on about, oh, there's thousands of these jihadists in the country. Well, you knew about them and you never, so you sent ICE after the fucking farmhand workers instead of those guys. You know what I mean? Like, number one, you should have went after them, charged them with crimes against humanity, and executed them. People go on about Omar Khadr up here from the States, but I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, Trudeau paid a terrorist $10 million. I get that. That guy should have been executed for crimes against humanity, sure. But the bigger question is, why does he exist? Well, he exists because when he was 15 years old, we were bombing the shit out of his country and we killed half his family. So, you know what I mean? It doesn't excuse him, but you understand why he's there. And that's what's going to happen with all these Iranian sympathizer terrorists, is that people are going to say, okay, the reason why these guys are killing our people is because we just killed their school children. The most sacred thing is a little girl, right? For vulnerability, right? Children, anybody that kills children is like, you're going to burn in hell. Like, God's most sacred thing, okay? His most sacred creation, and the thing he loves the most is the thing the devil hates the most, and that is children. That's why children goes out of its way. That's why the devil goes out of its way to destroy children, right? So if you're destroying the thing that God loves the most, the lambs, the children, you better hope he's just fictitious, because when you die and you meet him, he's not going to be very happy with you. And all these Zionist evangelical, fake Christians, that are like, we have to go and kill in the name of spite Israel's enemies in the name. Again, look at the fanaticism. Strike down Israel's enemies. Strike down Israel's enemies. They're talking about murdering people. They don't. They're so brainwashed they don't know. They're retarded at this point. Those people are going to burn in hell. Why? Because the Ten Commandments, guys. Thou shalt not commit murder. Thou shalt not destroy my. Like, the Bible just goes on and on. How you're not supposed to fuck up your brother's house. You know what I mean? And by brother, they mean your neighbor, your brother, whatever. And should you do that, they have the right to kill you. Read Leviticus. There's a lot of Leviticus is the biblical FAFO. If you do this, you will get this, right? It talks about it all in Leviticus. I'm on the book of Numbers right now in there, but anyway. But what I'm telling you is that no, the war seems to be winding down a bit, because the ability for the Americans to wage war, they're going to be on satellites and drones only. Everything, all the other supporting stuff, the kill chain is being dismantled. Meaning, once you take out the drones, you have to fly your F-35 directly over Iranian territory within striking range of your missile, which those long-range missiles are going to be, like those cruise missiles are useless without the targeting data, right? So you need the drone in there to get reliable data. You need the forward observation guys there. You need the satellites. You need the AWAC. You need the AWAC to watch. So when your F-35 is concentrating on getting his, weapons package to the target, that he doesn't, okay, look, we just detected a launch, so he can detect it in time. My hunch is that's probably why the F-35 got hit, is it probably was due to not enough aerial coverage from the AWACS to, and again, those AWACS, even if you don't shoot them down, they're going to be grounded for maintenance pretty soon. So this is why Trump was calling for the 10-day ceasefire, which the Iranians have. Like, hey, go ahead, take a break if you want. We're not. No, because this is an existential crisis for three countries involved. It's for the world, but for Israel, they have no choice but to see it all the way through. If not, they're dead. The Arabs are going to push them into the sea. Good riddance. I mean, like right now, Hezbollah is whacking Merkava tanks left, right, and center. And once the Merkava, they only got 1,300 of those. And they may have lost, a couple of hundred of them in the past year or two, or since October 7th, right? Not to mention, Hezbollah, their Hornet anti-tank missiles are just absolutely reaping havoc. They're losing low-level choppers, so, the Israelis can no longer just, fly over the West Bank and that with Apache gunship helicopters with impunity. They're meeting MADPAD launchers. They're meeting, the Lebanese army is basically, and Hezbollah are basically, which is an Israeli creation. But the thing is yes, the guys at the top might be Mossad agents, but the guys actually executing the war are not. And what I mean? They're going to get their asses kicked anyway. What I'm saying is Lebanese territory is about to expand. They're going to push the Israelis back. The Israelis they're already saying they don't have enough men to fight, and their men are at max limit. They got 9 fronts on the go if you go by Netanyahu, right? But the thing is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Israel's going to lose anyway. They're going to lose anyway. The genocide of Jews is going, and the 10th Crusade is going to really be noticeable. We're talking probably 7 to 9 million Jews being killed in the Middle East. Which is all of Israel pretty much. It's just, how are they going to do it? Is it going to be this drawn out war with Lebanon? Or is it just going to be the final solution, Iranian rocket barrage on the Jews? I don't know. We'll see. Because right now, again, there's a lot of targets to hit, but the Iranians are hitting stuff that's important to them against the war. They're not really attacking the civilians, but the odd rocket strays, sure. And it's not forgiving that. I'm just saying, the cluster bombs and stuff like that. They are targeting things that is, intelligence, surveillance, everything that the Israelis need to fight the war. Once they've done that, after that, like I say, you start knocking out desalination plants. Like again, there is reasons why the Iranians don't want to do this, because they don't really want to kill everybody. Like if they wanted to, that'd be the first thing they'd hit, especially in Israel. But they also know that if you take out the desalination plants, the Palestinians that get the very few Palestinians that can get water from the Israelis, you'd be taking it from them too. So they're like, like again, like otherwise you hit, like if you really want to kill the Israelis right away, you hit the Mona nuclear power plant right away, right? The Iranian or their nuclear stockpiles. The melt off, the burn off will just kill everybody in the region with radiation sickness. The problem is it'll go throughout the entire Middle East. So the Iranians are fighting very restricted. Yes, they're taking hits, they're taking losses, but not like the Americans are taking, not like the Israelis are taking. That's clear as day. That's clear as day. Oh yeah, but we hit this many targets, and yeah, but the targets that are hitting are all above ground targets that are really not that important. Bombing a lot of buildings, just calling them terrorist buildings, is not really. Like the Iranians are pacing themselves. Like they could probably fire 40 rockets a day indefinitely. They could probably fire 30 Shahed drones indefinitely. We don't know what they have. You know what I mean? And they seem to be very consistent. So when you see that big drop of the early state of the war, well, what did they do in the early state of the war? They used like rocket barrages to overtake the Iron Dome and the THAAD system and the Arrow 3 system and Arrow 2 system and the David Sling and all that and Iron Dome and all that, Patriot missile systems. And they targeted that stuff first. So that's like month one. Month two will be like, okay, get the rest of the oil tankers. Get all the bearing factories, all the weapons industry stuff in Israel. Like Israel, just the damage that's done there will be hundreds of billions of dollars to rebuild that. You know what I mean? Like it's not just the the military assets; it's all the civilian. Like Ben Gurion Airport is multi-billions of dollars to rebuild that. You know what I mean? All those airliners, is lost revenue. All that tourism, like I say, they lost $600 million of tourism throughout the Middle East already. I don't know how many tourists would be left in Dubai, but my hunch is probably not very many. Like, it's too much of a risk. The foreign workers, again, how many of them have made it out of the country? They're never coming back ever again. You know what I mean? Like, basically the Middle East economies are done. That's it. If they can ever get the oil up and going again, they're going to have to rebuild everything. Their colleges, they're going to have to rebuild those because they, target Iranian colleges. They target yours. You know what I mean? Yeah, so the last thing I'd say about the Iranians, with what they're doing, like I say, they're pacing themselves, and each night they're hit. Like they already have all the cards in the upper hand, so they're not just going to survive this. They are going to humiliate the United States. Like you have to understand, like for a U.S. Air Force guy to see an AWAC hit right on the radar dome perfectly, from 1,000 miles away or a couple of hundred miles away, whatever it is. Like, that's got to be fucking demoralizing. You know what I mean? To see that footage, like all the F-35 pilots to say, oh, fuck, the stealth is great against X-band radar, but it's horrible against everything else, including thermal imaging. We've got to be very careful where we fly. Watching all the, again, and you see these cheerleader types. Oh, look, the Iranians fired a manpad and it missed. Of this, basically, Super Hornet or whatever dodging the missile. Yeah, he got away from that one. But how many of those is it going to take before it lands, right? 3, 5, 10? I don't know. Again, manpad launchers, they some of these things can fire up to vertically up to 25,000 feet. That's 5 miles, guys, in any direction. On something that's 4 feet long and maybe 60, 80 millimeters in diameter, or maybe even less than that. And you just, they're not that accurate, but if they have a 5-10% chance, 10% chance, that means every 10 missiles you lose an aircraft. And I can guarantee you that $25,000 Madpan launcher is going to be way cheaper than that $90 million F-35. You know what I mean? Or that $100 million F-15. Like again, an F-15s, that's just the cost of the jet, not the cost of all the parts, the procurement, the labor, the fuel. You know what I mean? Like a jet might be like a couple of $1 billion throughout its life cycle to spend on it. Like people never add up the operational costs. You add up the operation. Like if you take your car, okay, let's say you buy a car brand spanking new. Okay, you'll probably never put enough fuel into that car to equal that. But let's say you buy a used car for 10 grand. Okay, 10 grand is maybe 3-4 years worth of fuel. It's probably 5 years worth of insurance. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's how you have to look at. It's 2 or 3 years worth of tires. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Fortunately, you get tires you can run them for a long time, but you get the idea. There's a maintenance cost. You know, it's 10 brake jobs, whatever. Who knows? Um, who knows, right? But you get the idea. Like the cost, the weaponry. You know, like just the weaponry. Like wow. And again, stockpiles. We don't know what the United States truly has. Like it's like the Russians. Oh, they're running out. They're running out. Just because they hit a couple of logistic snags doesn't mean they're running out, right? The Iranians. Oh, they're running out. They're running out because they're not doing 200 barrages a night. They don't need to. But if you look at what they're hitting, they fire one missile and they take out an AWAC. One missile is all you need. You don't need 10, right? And if you're doing rocket barrages on top of that, okay, well, you might have taken there could be up to 16 tankers out of commission right now. That is a huge, huge battlefield loss. There could be 40 to 60 drones taken out. That is a huge logistics nightmare of coverage you now don't have. If you lost up to 6 of your 16 AWACS globally, you know what I mean? Now you don't have, and you lost all the forward looking long range radar. Now it's up to the aircraft and the satellites only, and maybe liaison groups on the ground. And if you're losing guys on the ground, because maybe every like 3 or 4 days the Iranians hone in on them, it's like, oh, okay, that guy was targeted there. Okay, yeah, there's a bunch of guys up in the hill there. Send out the chopper, send out whatever, fire the mortar or the artillery, get them. You know what I mean? Get them with the drones. We don't know. We don't know. Again, if Trump is crazy enough to sacrifice on behalf of Israel, the Jews would like this because then it's a good blood sacrifice if they could get, like, say, 10,000 Americans killed on the beaches of Iran. The rally around the flag will be maybe 10% of Americans. The rest will be saying our guys did this to ourselves. This is why Trump, okay, well, we're going to get out of NATO. They're not going to get out of NATO because you're going to lose too much money, right? Like the whole point of Trump going and threatening everybody to raise their NATO stuff to 2% of GDP was the idea was we're going to get everybody to raise their budgets to 2% of GDP, which Carney did in around a year in office. That's impressive. And he's working on 5% of GDP. But he's doing it for the fuck Trump economy now. You know what I mean? But here's the kicker. All that money, the United States was like, okay, yeah, well, we're going to make money off the weapons industry. And right now, almost nobody's, like the people that are committed to the F-35, yeah, they got to follow through because of lawsuits and shit like that. But like, for example, Saudi Arabia is going to get more F-35s because, and chances are they're probably going to get the Canadian ones. We're like, at the soonest we'd get F-35s, would be 5 years from now, but we've been waiting on F-35 since 1997, right? So we've been paying all this money into this fucking program. Plus we got sued when we canceled it under Trudeau, and then we brought it back in again. We've paid for like stuff that we're just not going to get. You know what I mean? Like the Sikorsky helicopters, that took like 15 years to get those fucking things. They're great helicopters, don't get me wrong. The CH-148 Cyclones are great. But by the time we get them, they're almost obsolete, right? Carney's going with the opposite. Okay, well, we need stuff, ASAP. Get what we can get now. Start building so that we have a replenishable, like procurement has always been the problem because went with the United States, and the United States has always been okay. 70 cents of every military dollar you spend goes to the United States, but somehow we're fucking the United States over, according to Trump. And the thing is that okay, well, we'll do that because you're going to buy it from us no matter what. So we'll fill everybody else's orders before yours, right? And that's basically Canadian procurement. But when we build stuff, it seems like we get it a little bit faster, you know. But we have to build the industries, you know, like warships. We're doing that, you know. It takes time. It takes time, you know. We built 5 out of the 6 Harry DeWolf Arctic patrol boats, which these things are going to Antarctica. They're all over the place. All these other research ships, the Protector class or Procurer class, you know, supply ships, largest ship ever built in Canada, over 600 feet long. Not the largest ship in the world, the largest built in Canada. And then now we're building our super destroyer, which should be sea trials probably 2028, probably finished by 2027 for the first one out of the 15. But we might not, like, I think we've only commissioned the first 3. After the third one, you know, the river class destroyers might be completely obsolete. Who knows? You know, we just found out aircraft carriers are pretty much obsolete. Not completely, but you know, their role has changed. Their role has changed. Yeah. So the thing is that NATO is going to stick around. It's going to be NATO minus the United States. So the United States has overplayed its hand of its importance in a lot of areas, economically, militarily. That, you know, without the world, you know, the United States protects the entire world. Yes, they're basically a major force in the world, but most of these wars are fought on behalf of Israel and the United States anyway. Predominantly Israel. All wars are bankers' wars. All wars are for Israel. But most of like the stuff against Russia again is on behalf of the petrodollar, right? And the thing about that is Europe, you know, like without the United States, they could take on Russia. They might be in a bit of a shambles state, but you know, if Macron starts like France itself, okay, just defending France, okay, if you could just make the stuff that they have work, it could hold off the Russians for a good degree. The British, the same thing, is, you know, if they could get what they have back into service, they could hold off the Russians. You're right. The Russians will never invade London. They're never going to invade Paris. You know what I mean? The Germans, the same thing. Now put France, Germany, and Spain, Italy, and the UK up against particularly France, UK, and Germany as a super pact. They could probably hold off the Russians, especially the Germans with their tanks, you know, Leopard tanks and stuff like that. They could do well there. And then, of course, the Eurofighters and all that. Where the Russians have the upper hand is that they've gotten ahead on the drone warfare. Hence, this is where Canada comes in. We're really, really, really putting a push on that. We're going to have a drone building hub probably within the year, ahead of the United States. Like again, all the things that I'm seeing happening in Canada. There's a lot of bad stuff here. Like, I mean, we still have to deal, again, point of privilege cards. We still have to deal with that, right? We have to deal with the censorship. We have to deal with the gun ban. We have to deal with all these woke cards. We have to deal with all that corruption, government corruption. We have to deal with the Indian invasion. You know what I mean? And the Indian truckers and all that. We have to deal with all that. The refugees and all that bullshit. But there's still a lot of areas where industry-wise, again, especially in research ships, like we got research ships the Americans don't have. You know, they have some, but they don't quite have what we have, because they spend more on their military, not on the research and science. NASA is still a bigger space program than Canada, but Canada's now, basically, we're getting out of the idea of piggybacking on anybody else in partnerships as much, where we're doing partnerships where, okay, it's mutual benefit. Again, the soft Gripen, will we ever get it? It's hard to say because it comes down to the General Electric engine. There's a lot of rumors of and I've reported on it too, that the Rolls-Royce engine that might be being used. According to Saab, they're like, no, we're not doing that at this time. We're not looking for a replacement for the Gripen's engine at this time. But unless they got an engine for us, we can't get, we're not going to get the Gripen because the United States can block the sale of the soft Gripens because of those engines, right? Personally, I think we should have, never mind the F-35, get some Eurofighter Typhoons because I don't think they have General Electric. I think they have Rolls Royce in there. And that would be, but with an agreement that we have intellectual rights to it, that we can mass produce it, whatever, without anybody stopping what we were doing. And just to build it for us, not for export, but to build it for us. Where the soft Gripen, if we assemble and build them in Canada, we could be eventually building these things to the point where we're helping soft Gripen fill orders, such as like an extra 150 aircraft to the Ukraine. But Trump can block that because of the General Electric stuff. It's the same problem that our warships are going to have, is that we can't use the Raytheon technology in there now. We have to look for other stuff, which we've got BAE and Saab that we could use. What I would recommend is do a combination between, like, go with the soft Gripen, but use as much Swedish stuff, so it's all compatible and ready to go. And yes, the Swedish stuff is NORAD and NATO compatible, right? That was bullshit that they could do. It was an algorithm. So yeah, but we'll see what happens there. So I guess I'm babbling now anyway. But yeah, the drone thing, the Carg Island, but it does look like, like things are like they're becoming a bit of a standstill because like they ran out of targets to hit in Iran that are of any value, right? So at this point, you're just murdering civilians and going after critical infrastructure for civilians, water, food, that kind of stuff, energy, power, hydro, that kind of stuff, which nobody around the world likes to see that, Again, the Iraqis, one thing that's why the Americans got away with it with Iraq and Afghanistan. Number one, Afghanistan didn't have that much infrastructure. Number two, it was at a time in the internet where you didn't really see this. Now people watch you basically murdering school children in real time. Like, it was 5 minutes after the school was hit, everybody around the world knew that the Americans had murdered school children, right? Little girls, right? And that's the war we're in now. This is why there's such a crackdown on trying to make sure that, again, you see how heavy the hand of censorship is. When you realize that, like, it is impressive in that sense, because it's like, wow, they're, with what we know, can you imagine what they're not telling us? Like, there could be 10,000 dead American soldiers. It could be 500,000 dead Iranians, 500,000 dead Israelis. We don't know. I don't think it's that yet, but we know there's way more that, like, there's not 13 Americans dead and 140 wounded. While it's now because they've already contradicted themselves. Oh, well, 200 were wounded on the U.S. Gerald Ford during the fire, and 600 displaced and 2 people killed. Okay. And then in another drone attack, there was on one of the bases, there was 80 people injured, when they took out the AWAC. Oh, but, you know what I mean? And then there was 600 people injured, on all these attacks. It's like, so what is the actual number? We don't know. But anyway, all right, rate, subscribe, share, comment, like, be true to yourself, be true to others. We'll see always do the right thing. We'll see what kind of chaos goes for tomorrow. But again, if the Americans have lost the ability to safely fight standoff-wise, the Iranians have already won. And not only that, the Iranians are going to go on the offensive. Right? They are going to drive the Americans from the Middle East. And this will be better for America. It will be. It'll be horrible for Israel. Like, Israel would probably nuke America just to get them in, full into the war. They would probably do something like that. Why? Because, it's the Israelis, right? These people are not right in the head. I know it's not all of them, but the majority of them that are in power are just listen to the IDF. Like, these people want to kill everybody. These guys protested on raping their war prisoners. We should be allowed to rape them. Palestinians, if we arrest them, we should be allowed to execute them right away. This is what the Israelis are doing. You know what I mean? And then when you call it out, it's like, oh, you anti-Semite. Okay, but am I wrong? You know what I mean? Anyway, yeah. I'll leave it at that. We'll see what kind of chaos comes in tomorrow. And there we go.